How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this coding course full video. This is just a compilation of all the videos in this playlist combined into one. And by the end of this tutorial, you'll have learned enough to be able to create this app right here that you see on both of our emulators on iOS and Android. Now, you don't need a Mac to make this app. You can do it on Windows. I have attached some links in the description down below for Windows setup for React Native. However, this is what we're going to build right here. It's a simple React Native app. We pull some data from an API called the Jcan API, cache it using React Query, and then we display it in I think this is a recycler list view. Click it, it shows you some information about the anime. I can click on this, share this anime, and it actually creates a dynamic link that I can click on, and then I can share this specific page right here, and then I can see all of the recommended anime associated to that as well. Same thing, share anime. And it's a pretty simple app like that. And then you click on this exit the app. That's pretty much it. So enjoy this course, and I hope that it helps a lot, and I hope that you learn a lot from it. Just a quick preface, unfortunately, we will not be putting this app on the Play Store. We're just going to be building it in both iOS and Android. I'm trying to figure out a way to recover my account to be able to push this on to at least the Google Play Store. I'll make an update for that later on. I apologize for the inconvenience, and I hope that you enjoy the course. What up, everybody? Welcome back to another course. So I'm excited to bring you guys a brand new one. We are going to be learning about React Native and how to work with it. There's going to be a whole bunch of information throughout this course, and hopefully within the next couple of videos you guys will have a pretty good understanding of how to work with it. And let me just go ahead and introduce what we will be doing in this course. Now, of course, you will need a little bit of React knowledge, not much, to actually work with this course. And if you don't have much knowledge with it, I'll do my absolute best to make it as simple as possibly can. And by the end of this course, we're going to be building a anime list app. Basically, I am a huge weeb and I watch a lot of Naruto, so I figured what's the best way to make an app is to do something you enjoy, and I figured that we'll make an anime app that's going to list a whole bunch of animes, and we can click on one and we get more information, characters, and all that sort of good stuff. Thankfully, by the end of it, well, hopefully by the end of it, we will actually be able to put it onto the Play Store or the App Store as well. So stay tuned for the next video where we're going to learn about how to install it on a macOS device. And if you have different devices, don't worry, I will also put links in the description below for installing it on Linux and Windows. Today we're going to be talking about how to set up React Native onto our macOS device. Now if you don't have a macOS device, don't worry, I have attached links in the description down below for some very good videos that you can follow for Linux and Windows. And by the end of it, once we have everything set up, we are going to be installing this boilerplate code as our actual app, and then we're going to build our app through there. So then we have a pretty good building block and how to work with everything. So let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so there are a few things that you'll need to install beforehand before you can actually install the React Native CLI, and thankfully the React Native documentation comes in very handy with this, and I've attached a link to this documentation in the description down below. So since we are using the development operating system of macOS, I just go ahead and click that. And we are going to be targeting both Android and iOS, but firstly, we will be installing it for Android. So to install it for Android, you do need to install a couple of things beforehand. You will need Node, Watchman, and JDK, as well as Android Studio. Now, JDK and Android Studio are what allow the Android development process to take place. And to do all that sort of stuff, we're going to be using something called Homebrew. Now, if you don't know what Homebrew is, it's another package manager. In their words, it's a missing package manager for Mac OS. Basically, this is going to allow us to be able to install all of our stuff that we need. So, if you don't have Homebrew, all you have to do is just go ahead and copy this snippet of code right here, and you just paste it into your actual terminal, and you can go ahead and let it just work its magic. But since I've already have it installed, I don't need to do that. But after that, once you have that installed, all we have to do is copy this snippet of code, which is going to install Node and Watchman. So I'm going to paste it and let it work its magic right there. So if you don't know what Watchman is, it's a tool developed by Facebook that allows you to watch changes in the file system, and is highly recommended for you to install it for better performance. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, my last computer was absolutely dookie, so I didn't really notice much of a performance boost. But since I'm using this Mac, I hope that it does help. And since it's already installed, it's just updating itself right now. So after that, we need to install Java Development Kit. If you know me, I absolutely hate installing this on Windows because it's always the biggest hassle. But thankfully it's pretty simple on Mac OS. All we have to do is copy this and it'll install something called Zulu using Homebrew. And so once that's installed, we have to go ahead and install the next thing, which is going to be our Android development environment. Alrighty, so I went ahead and opened up the Android Studio website, and the way that we're going to install it, all we have to do is click download Android Studio, and be sure to read this. I've already read it in my past life, and we have to select which one of these that we actually have. And in my case, I have the M1 chip Mac, so I'm going to go ahead and select on the Apple chip one right there, and let it work its magic, and let it just download. And now that it's downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and just put this bad boy in there, like so. So after you did that, it probably won't automatically open for you, so just go ahead and just do Windows space, and then you can search Android Studio, and then open it up. And then once you open it up, you should see this prompt right here. It says config or installation directory. We're just going to go ahead and do not import settings, and press OK. And unfortunately, it's opened up in my other window. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to press next. And we can go ahead and select standard. That's about all we really need. I'm going to dark mode, and all of these are selected. This one is grayed out. We'll select this later, since these are the most important things that we need for this to work. After that, I'm going to press next, next, and be sure to read all of this. This is very, very important. And then click on this, and then be sure to read all of this. Is very, very important. Okay, and then press accept, and then finish. And now it should be installing every single thing that you need. And then you can go ahead and click finish. Perfect. So now we are welcome into Android Studio, this little dialog right here. What we have to do now is we need to make sure that every single thing is proper. So we need to make sure our SDK platform is 33. I know it says here 31, but we want to make sure it's up to date to what Chipmunk 2021 is, but which is going to be 33. So I'm going to click on more actions and then click on SDK manager. Unfortunately, I can't zoom in. I'm trying that, it just didn't work for me. But when you do go into this page, you're going to see it look something like this right here. Go ahead and click on this show package details right here. It's very hard to see, I know, but it says show package details. And what we have to do is, depending on what our chip is, if it's an M1 or an Intel, we have to install a couple of things. So since mine is an M1, we need to install Google API ARM64VA system image, and I think it's this one right here. And once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and click on SDK tools. And for SDK tools, it does tell us to make sure that it's on version 31. So if I click on show package details, it's not 31, obviously it's going to be 33 for us for this point in time. So now I'm going to click apply, and then it's going to tell us that this needs to be installed, and we're going to go ahead and click OK. Alrighty, so now we have to set up the environment variables, and these are the bane of my existence because it took me forever to understand how to actually work with this, but it's really simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code snippet and I'm going to paste it into my ZSH terminal. This is a terminal that I've been using the entire time. I should have specified that in the beginning. I'll add a piece of text for that specifically, but I'm going to paste that right there, and I'm going to go to the very top of this snippet of code. It's going to take me some time, so bear with me. And once I'm at the top, at this $home section right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do dot ZSHRC and then slash. And then I'm going to just go ahead and press enter, and that's all we have to do. So now we've set our environment variables to point to where we need them to point at. And just to make sure that we have everything working, if we were to type in echo $Android Studio SDK root, we should see it goes to something like this. It should be like users, your thingy, and then ZSHRC, and then library Android Studio SDK. And then we also have to make sure our path is also the appropriate area. So then if we click on this, and then we see that it's working perfect. Alright, so now we have to install the command line interface. Now it's really simple. Since Node.js already comes with it, you don't actually have to install anything. You can actually just create an app and run it. But you may run into a slight issue where, let's say you did npx react-native-init awesome project, like it is saying right there. Whoops, let me just change the size of this really quickly. And it may say something like unresolved, undefined, can't find, React version 0.69 or something like that. So to fix that issue, if you ever have it, all you have to do is run this command where it is rm-rf squiggly line /.npm, which removes the npm folder, and then it'll work for you. So then all you have to do is npx react native init awesome project. So now we're done with, so now let's go ahead and actually make sure that this is working. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to run this app, but I'm going to run it in my desktop. So ls cd desktop, yep, go ahead, and then we're just going to do that right there and let it work its magic. Alright, so now the next thing that we have to do now that our app is installed, we need to create a virtual device. So I open up my Android Studio and I'm going to click on more action and click on virtual device manager, and then we'll see that there's already a device made, but this device is dookie. It's not going to be able to do anything, so I'll go ahead and just delete it, get it out of there. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to create a device, and I'm going to click on the most recent one, and we're going to do, let's go with Pixel 5, and then we'll go click next. We're going to leave it as API level 33, next, and I'm going to leave it as the name is Pixel 5 API level 33, and nothing to change there, and nothing to change there. Perfect. So now if we click finish, let it make the device, click on this play button and let it run the device. So now the device is running right here, and once you have it running, the next thing you have to do, go ahead and open up your Android Studio or your code editor, and you're going to want to go into your Android folder. Now since this app is very old, this template code is very old, what we have to do is we need to create a file called local.properties, and basically what this is going to do is it's going to tell the app to look at our SDK. So if you were to run the app right now, what's going to happen is it's going to give you a big error that's going to say cannot find SDK in this directory that you've specified. So what we have to do is create a local properties file inside of the Android main folder, and then give it sdk.dir is equal to space /user /your name right here /library /android /sdk. And then once you've done that, everything should be fine. If you have another problem still with your SDK pointing at an incorrect area, what you can do is you can actually go back into the configuring your Android SDK root environment variable, and you can just go ahead and just copy and paste this as is into your terminal. And then once that's done, you can actually go ahead and run this command called npx-react-native-start. And while that's started, I'm going to open up another terminal, and I'm going to do npx react-native run-android. And it should be talking to our emulator device right here. Oops, let me go ahead and minimize this a little bit so we can see both things at the same time. So it's saying that we have an issue, and that issue is, and so the error that we had was that we just didn't have enough space on our device. And so the way to fix that, all you have to do is click on this pencil icon, and then scroll down and click on show advanced settings, and then scroll even lower, and then you want to change your internal storage and your SD card to greater than whatever is shown there currently. So I just changed it to gigabyte and gigabyte, and I gave both of them the value of 5. And then when you click finish, that should be fine. And then just to make sure, you can also wipe your data, and everything should be fine. And then you can press play, and once you press play, it should run. And while it's running, I'm going to go ahead and do npx react-native start. And now that that's started, be sure to get rid of your initial terminal where before you made the change right here. So once you get rid of that terminal and you open up a new one, all you have to do is npx react-native run android, and then let it work its magic. So we should see that it's installed here eventually. So now it's connected, perfect, and now it's installed, and it is bundling, and it works. So let me just make a quick change here, just to make sure that everything is working as it should. So if I go into app.js, and if I do, let's do welcome to React Native. I'll just put a bunch of S's here, save it, and now we should see S's right there. Perfect. So now we've set up React Native for Android. Let's go ahead and set it up for iOS. How to set up the iOS part of this application in React Native so we can have our iOS simulator running at the same time, because we are developing this for both platforms. So since we've already installed Watchman and Node and Brew, we don't need to worry about any of these steps. But what we need to do is install something called Xcode. Now the easiest way to do this is, in their words also, to do it straight from the iOS App Store. And thankfully it's really easy. So if you have your App Store opened, if you don't, go ahead and open it and search up Xcode, and then it should be the second one right here, Xcode Developer Tools. I already have it downloading. It's been like almost an hour, but let this finish downloading, and once it's downloaded, then go ahead and just open it up. Alrighty, so now my Xcode is finally finished installing after about 12 hours almost, and once it's done installing, go ahead and just click open. Alrighty, so once it's open, if you've already installed this beforehand, you want to just make sure that this is a fresh, up-to-date Xcode. So the way you can make sure of that is you have to go into Xcode, click on Preferences, and then we have to click on Locations, and then on the command line tools, go ahead and make sure that's up at the most up-to-date version of it. Since it's a fresh install, I don't have to worry about that. Now after that, we have to install our actual iOS simulator. So to do the simulator, all we have to do is click on Components right here, and then we have to click on the most recent one. I don't actually know of anything about iOS specifically. I mainly just use Android, but I'm going to go ahead and select the most recent one and install that. Alrighty, so after that we have to install something called CocoaPods. This is a dependency manager built on Objective-C and for Swift, and there's a couple of ways to install it, and I've noticed that specifically for M1 chips that there is a issue that comes up. So if I were to do, let's say, sudo gem install CocoaPods, there would be an error. Well, there used to be an error, but it would say something like cannot install, you don't have permissions to write, or gem doesn't work, something like that. So the way that I went and bypassed this was doing brew install CocoaPods, and well, I've already installed it, and then in this method I can still install CocoaPods and everything that it comes with, as opposed to doing sudo gem. So I can check if it's working by doing pods -v, oops, pod -v, should be pod --version. There we go. Okay, so pod --version shows me that I have it installed right here. Alrighty, so now what I'm going to be doing is, while the simulator is downloading, I'm going to be initializing a brand new project just to make sure our iOS simulator works, and it's going to be the exact same snippet of code that we had last time, npx react-native init, and the name of the project. And since this is what we're actually going to be building upon, I decided that we're not going to use that boilerplate code. We're going to be making it scratch from whatever boilerplate that React Native provides. I'll call it anime list. That'll be the name of the project. I know it's very, very creative. Thank you. So it's going to go ahead and download the template and let it work its magic. Alrighty, so now everything is done installing. Let's go ahead and actually run this on iOS and see if it works. So first I'm going to do npm start to start our metro, and in another terminal I'm just going to go ahead and do npx react-native and then run iOS. And then it should ask me unable to boot, perfect, and then it should boot the device and then build the app on the device. And it's going to take some time. Oh, I guess it's not. It's right there. And so just to make sure everything's working, I'm going to go ahead and open up my app.js, and I'm going to add a couple of S's where the edit is right here and save it. And perfect, everything's connected. And so from here on out, we will be continuing the development primarily through Android. And then at the end of the tutorials, we will be opening it up in iOS just to make sure that everything is working as it should in both platforms. I got something pretty boring, but it is very, very important in my opinion. We have to talk about folder structure for our app. So we start off strong, and while we develop through, we actually know what's going on. And you might be wondering, why do you want to talk? Why should there be a dedicated video on folder structure specifically? Well, let's say you're developing this app 10 years down the line. You want to know easily what's going on. You don't want a whole bunch of different components all over the place doing random things. You want to put it all in a structured environment so that when you look back 10 years down the line to make some changes, you can do that. So in today's video, we're going to talk exactly how to do that, and I'll show you guys how we're going to be structuring our folders and our project. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, before we do get started, I'm just going to quickly talk about what's happening in this boilerplate app that we just created. So if we open up our index.js file, we'll see a couple of lines of code where we're doing app registry.register component, app name, and then we're calling app. Now, basically what this is doing is it's just talking to our app.js file and it's rendering whatever's happening inside of there. So this is our app.js file and is returning, well, all of this section right here. Now, we want to treat our index.js file as the entire app. So our entire app will be encapsulated in different parts. So when we do eventually add routing, if you've ever done anything with React Router, we're going to host our routing containers, navigation containers and all that sort of good stuff. And our app.js file itself will contain all of our routes that we're going to be rendering and allowing the user to go to. So that's pretty much all you really need to know. It's just these two files right here. And now what we're going to do is we need to create a new folder inside of our main directory. I'm going to call it src. So, oh, whoops, not a new file. Let me delete that and create a new folder called src. And inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and move my app.js file into there. And inside of my index.js file, I'm just going to go ahead and do /src/app, like so. And so now it's pointing towards this app.js file now. So after that, we're going to create two folders. Our first one is going to be called components. And after that, we're going to create another folder in our src folder called images. So our components folder is going to basically contain all of our components, our files, our pages, all of our common components. So let me just go ahead and save that index.js file. So inside of my components folder, I'm going to create another folder and I'm going to call it common. And after that, I'm going to create another folder inside of the components folder again, and we're going to call it pages. So we're going to treat our common folder as all of our common components. So what a common component is let's say you had to render a list of, an alphabetical list of cat names. Well, if you wanted to render that alphabetical list of cat names in the home page, but you also wanted to do it in, let's say, your account page, you wouldn't want to create two separate files to do the exact same thing. That's where a common component would come in to do the job of two things at once. And after that, our pages component, well, this is going to contain all of our pages, all of our React router pages, React navigation pages. So if we go into, let's say we click on an anime and we see the actual anime, the description of the anime and the characters, well, that would be a separate page in itself. The home page would be a separate page. And all that sort of good stuff from there. And after that, we have the images. This is just our images for the app. So let's say we want to add a custom splash screen. This is where we could put it, as well as our Android and iOS folders. But our images folder is going to contain all the images for the app. And after that, inside of our common folder, we're going to create another folder called hooks. And this is going to contain all of our hooks. So a hook is basically, in our sense for this app, is going to be API calls. So specific API calls to our Gcon API that we found earlier in the last couple of videos. And for example, if we wanted, let's say Naruto, we would make a hook call to one of our hooks that we create, and it would return Naruto back to us, and then we display that. Very simple, that's it. And inside of our pages, I'm going to create another folder, and I'll call it home, and that's it. And our home folder is going to contain all of the stuff associated to our home page in the app. Whatever we need to put, we'll put it inside of that folder and any other folder that we have. So let's say we had to list all the anime. That would be another page. We would make a folder for that, and so on and so forth like that. Cool, so that concludes everything regarding folder structure. Now, it's very basic. I did my very best to make it as basic and as easy to understand as possible. So what is React Navigation? Well, React Navigation is the industry way of being able to route between different screens and components in your app for React Native. Now, its documentation is bloody good. It's amazing. As well as its compatibility with both Android and iOS. So let's go ahead and actually talk about how to install it and set it up into our app. So we need to install a couple of components for this to work. Now, fortunately, this works with both Expo and bare bones React Native projects. And since we're making a bare bones React Native project, we have to go through a couple more steps than what Expo has to go through. So what we're going to be doing is first we have to install React Navigation. So I'm going to do npm install at react-navigation/native. And then let it work its magic. And then after that, we need to install a couple of other packages. We're going to be installing React Native Screens and React Native Safe Area Context. And then after that, we need to set it up for iOS and Android. So for iOS, it's really simple. All we have to do is npx pod-install iOS. And for Android, what we have to do is we have to go into our Android folder. We have to go into app, source, main, then Java, and then this main activity.java file, we need to add a couple of lines of code inside of here. So underneath this snippet of code right here, I'm going to add a little bit of Java. This is what React Navigation recommends that you need to add for this to work, or else there's going to be some errors. And then after that, we're going to have to install and import, import this package right here, this Android OS bundle, and then click save. So basically the reason we had to do this specifically for Android is if there's any sort of activity restart, so if there's any sort of difference in the app, it's gonna crash it a lot of times, and a lot of people have this issue, and this is how you fix it. That's it. So now let's go ahead and set up our navigation container. Remember how I said earlier we're gonna be changing our index.js file to have our navigation container added to it in the last video? But that's what we're gonna do right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a function called app component is equal to curly braces like so. We're going to create a function, and inside here we're going to do navigation container, and we're going to add app with a self-closing brace, whoops, like so. And I'm going to use prettier to clean it up, and we also need to import React. So I'm going to do import React from React like so, perfect. And now we're going to actually registering this component, this function, as opposed to our app. So it's actually going to be registering our navigation container encapsulated with our app. So we have navigation available to our actual app itself. So now that we've contained our app with our navigation container, we're going to create some routes and do some navigation with it. So before we do begin, I think this is really cool and really important to talk about. The React Navigation documentation talks about this really well, is what is the purpose of React Navigation. So I'm going to just quickly talk about what this little area means, because it's important for our understanding and to be better developers. So basically what they're saying right here is that in a web browser you can link to different pages using an anchor tag, and when you click it, it would be pushed onto that browser history stack. So let's say you go to Google, you click an anchor tag, then you go to like google.com/apples. So that previous page is then stacked on top. That previous page is then stacked on bottom of that new page. And well, unfortunately, React Native doesn't have this built in, and this is where React Navigation enters the story. So React Navigation Stack Navigator provides a way for your app to transition between screens and manage navigation history, and which is really cool. So it allows us to be able to navigate between different screens. Now, a key difference that they state here is that React Navigation's native Stack Navigator provides gestures and animation that you would expect on Android and iOS when navigating between routes in the stack. So if we wanted animations such as like slide from bottom to top of the screen, we can do that. If we wanted like fade in, fade out type of animations, we can do that as well. So there's a lot of possibility that you can do with the Create Native Stack Navigator, and that is the most common one that React Navigation uses. So that's what we're going to be using for this app as well. So after that, we need to install the actual native stack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this snippet of code right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and install it into our app like so. And so now going back into our app.js file that we put right here, what we're going to do is we're going to just clean house, and I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff. We don't need any of it. I am going to leave, however, the styles, and I'm going to get rid of all of the unused imports that we don't need. We don't need that, we don't need these, and we certainly do not need any of this section right here. We don't need the node. And we can get rid of this dark mode, light mode. We're not gonna have that functionality anyhow in the app. Let's get rid of all this stuff. Our text, color scheme, view, we'll add those things later on, but for now we don't need it. And I'm gonna get rid of that safe area view, prettier, and clean it all up. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create our stack navigator variable. So outside of our const app right here, I'm going to do const stack is equal to create navigation stack navigator. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create something called stack.navigator. Now this stack.navigator, you can think of it as the parent telling all of the little children what to do. So in this case, children will be different screens. So if I did like stack.screen, and inside of here we can define different type of props. So we can do like name, it will go to home, and we can give it the component that needs to route to, so it'll be like home screen. That's basically what's happening here. That's all you have to do. So let's go ahead and define this home screen. And so inside of my pages home, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it home.js. And for this, I'm going to just do a simple import React from React, and I'll do const home screen, and we'll do return a simple view tag, and we'll do text, and we'll just do home screen. So this is something that we haven't covered yet, but it's a good idea we cover it right now. So basically what a view is, you can think of it as a container, which is going to contain all the stuff that we would need. So you can't have anything inside of React Native without containing it either in a view or touchable opacity, which is like a button, which is pretty simple. So now I'll do import view and text from, whoops, that's weird, from React Native, and now I'll save it, and I'll also do export default home screen, and I'll just do some prettier, make it a little prettier. So now all we're going to return is a simple container, which is going to say home screen. That's it. And inside of here, we'll go ahead and import it. So this component would then be home screen like so. And I'll use prettier, make it a little prettier. And now if we save it, and now if we run it, it should work, and we should see our initial screen as the home screen. Well, we haven't defined the initial screen, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'll do initial route name, and we'll do home. And so now we've defined home as our initial route, so it'll always go to the home page whenever the app starts up. So now let's go ahead and run it and see if it works in both iOS and Android. So I'm going to do npm start, so start up our Metro server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a different terminal, and I'm going to do npx run npx React Native and run Android, and then I'm going to create another terminal, and I'll do npx React-native and run iOS. So now we're running both iOS and Android just to make sure that they're both working. And so I've opened up both emulators, and we can see that it's not running, and the reason that is because we forgot to get rid of the safe area view, which is preventing any sort of rendering happening inside of the app. So ideally we would put the safe area view within an actual component itself, but in this case we don't need it. So now we can see that we have both home screens rendered initially when the app loads for both iOS and Android. So perfect, we set up React navigation, and now let's go ahead and actually click a button and route to a different route. So remember how earlier I said that you can route between different routes in just regular React using an anchor tag? Well, it's pretty similar to how to do that in React navigation. The way you do that in React navigation, all you have to do is go into the actual route that you want to allow the user to route from, and we're going to pass a prop. So this prop is going to be called navigation, and we have to just give it the navigation right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a touchable opacity and import it. Touchable opacity, and what this is basically a button. It's a piece of text or image or whatever you want it to be that you can press, and you can run a certain function. So for this, it's not defined. Let me change the spelling. There we go. So for this, what we're going to do is I'm going to give it simple text that says go to different page. And we're going to run a function, so on press. So usually in regular React, you would have on click. In React Native, you have to do on press. We're going to run a function, and we're going to do navigation dot navigate, and we're going to be going to this different route. So for this one, I'll create another a different home page. So I'll do home 2, and I'll save that. And we have an error. There we go. I'll just fix that. There we go. Okay, cool. And now we have a different error in here. What does it say? It says that strings must be right. So all strings, no matter what, have to be encapsulated in a text tag. So text, and then you just put whatever you want inside here, like so, and now it should work. Cool. So now let me go ahead and create that another home page. So I'll do home.home2.js, and I'll just copy all this stuff, paste it in here, and we'll call this home to screen, and we'll save that just to make sure we have difference. So home to screen, like so, and in the app.js file we have to actually define the route that we're going to be going to, the different route. So I'll do home screen 2. I don't know if this why it's not detecting home to screen. Oh, that's weird. Home to, like so. And now if we go back into our app and we click the button, go to a different page, it says navigation payload is not received. Do you have a screen name that? Oh, whoops, I had a typo there. So the name is supposed to be 2, like that, because our file name is home TWO, not capital TWO. So now if we click it, we click on go to different page, it takes us to the different page. If we click it here, it takes us to the other page as well. Perfect, so now we've figured out how to route between different screens. So the last thing I want to show you guys is, let's say we wanted to continuously allow the user to be able to go back to that screen over and over and over again on the press of a button. This is a very common thing, and even React Navigation has an example of that on the documentation. But all we have to do is replace this .navigate with a .push, which is going to push this route onto the current stack. So let's say we have, let me go back to the Android emulator. So we have this stack right here. So right now we only have home in the pyramid, and then we navigate to the home 2. So now we have 2 different things, and now we're going to push home 2 again onto that stack, and then again, and again, and again, and again, as many times as you want. And then if we want to go back, we click back, then we got rid of that top item from the stack, the other one, and the other one, all the way up until we go to the beginning. Cool, so in the next video, we'll be talking about how to set up our bottom navbar like we have in that image that we had, this bottom navbar right here. Cool, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this home2 file since we don't need it anymore. We've learned how to do basic navigation with it. I'll get rid of it from here, and I'll get rid of this on press function as well as the text. Clean it up a bit, and refresh pressing R. And now if we go back into our emulator, we have to actually refresh the app itself. So I'll do that, npm start, restart the app, and now everything is back to what it was before. It's going to take some time to load, but that pretty much concludes how to do React Navigation at a beginner level. Oh wait, the import is still there. Let me get rid of that too. We don't need that. And refresh it all up. There we go. Cool, so now it's working, we're back. We have navigation set up. Today we're going to be learning about how to pull data and display it into the app. And just as we pull the data, we also have to make sure that we cache the data. So the importance of caching the data is because if we don't do it and we continuously call the API over and over and over again, it can make our app a little bit slower, as well as run up the bill for the actual API provider. So the way that we're going to be caching the data is we're going to be using something called React Query. Now this is an amazing third-party tool, which in a couple of steps that we're going to do today will help us set up and start caching whatever data we pull from the API. So let's go ahead and get started. So there's a couple of packages that we need to install. The first one being React Query, And the way that we can do that is really simple. All we have to do is npm I at tanstack/react query, and then after that we need to install something called Axios. That's basically going to allow us to do HTTP requests pretty easily, and it goes really well with React query. So go ahead and do that and press enter. So we do need to initialize our React query just like we did for our React navigation. So just like we did that, we need to encapsulate our entire app in something called that React query provides. It's called query client provider. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and encapsulate my app in that. So I'm going to do query client provider like so, and then take that ending tag and I'm going to put it at the very bottom like so. And after that, I'm going to provide this a prop, and it's going to be called client is equal to query client. And I'm going to create that function outside of here. So I'll just go ahead and do const query client is equal to new query client. So this initializes our actual React query to be able to start running and everything. So now what we need to do is we need to create a new hook that is going to be talking to the Gcan API. So let me just show you guys an example of how this API actually makes requests. So we have to do a simple GET request to this URL called, let me zoom in a little bit, called API Gcan Mo v4 anime. So that's their version 4 of the API, and it gives us about 25 rows of data, and this is what we're going to be displaying initially, and later on we're going to do pagination or whatever, but right now this is what we're going to display. So now in your hooks folder, which is right here, create a new file, and we're going to call it get all anime query.js. And all of our hooks are going to follow this exact template. It's going to be called get all or get some or get something. It'll define what we're trying to do, either get, post, or whatever. So the way that we're going to start this off, we're going to have to import use query from at tanstack react query, and then we have to import Axios from Axios. And after that, we're going to create a variable called const all anime URL. So this is just a string that's going to be the exact same thing that we put inside of this postman right here. So it is going to be https://api.gcan.mo/v4/anime, and this is also in the description down below if you want to just go and copy that as well. Now after that, we're going to create a new function. So what this function is going to do is we're going to make a simple GET request to this URL and just return the data. So the way that we're going to do that is const get all anime is equal to async, and we're going to create a function right here like so, and we're going to do const response is equal to await axios.get, and all we have to do is pass in all anime URL, and then all we have to do is return response. So basically what we're doing here is in this function, we're making an Axios call to this URL and just returning the data. Let's do response.data. There we go. And now what we have to do is we need to use React query so that we can cache this data and return it back to our front end. And for that to work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function that we're going to export. So I'll do export const use, it'll be capital use, get all anime is equal to function call like so. And you might be wondering, why did we capitalize this but now this? Well, it's because React query is really strict about making sure that this is a React function in their eyes and that it has to be a capital. So we're gonna call it use get all anime, and after that we're going to create another variable. What we're going to do is const curly braces is loading and data. After that we're going to do is equal to use query, and in curly braces and array block, I'm going to create a name for this. I'll call it all anime, and after that I'll do get all anime, so we're going to call that function, and then finally we're going to return the data. So the return data and is loading. So let me just quickly explain to you what is happening here. So we have these two variables here called is loading and data. What do they mean? Well, very simply, use query from React query allows us to return a certain amount of things from the actual use query function. So we have things such as data, is loading, We have data updated, error, failure count, is error fetched, a whole lot of things, but a lot of the cases, this is basically all you need. You need to check if is the item loading and if you have the data or not. Now you can also do is error and error. However, we don't need that because we're just going to be displaying a simple spinner that will either stop loading and display an error if there's no data, or actually display the data. And after that, we have the use query right here. So very simply, the thing that use query does is we can pass it a certain function, data, or whatever we want, and then it'll take it and then it will cache the results into our device. That's at a high level what it does. That's pretty much all you really need to know about it, at this point in time at least. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and actually use this bad boy in our app and see what it returns. So I'm going to go back into my home.js file, and underneath my home screen and above my return, I'm going to do const curly braces is equal to use get all anime, and I'm going to go ahead and import it. Now you might be wondering, what should we name this? Well, remember, we're not really naming it anything. We're trying to actually receive the data. So we're actually going to be calling the things that it returns to us. So in these curly braces, if I do command plus, oops, not command plus, control plus, you see that we have two different props. We have data and is loading. Now you might be thinking, that's very similar to what we're returning here. That's exactly what this is. It's going to be returning us two things. It's going to return the data and whether or not it is loading or not. So now that we've returned this, let's go ahead and actually display this. So the way that we're going to display this is going to be a little tricky, but allow me to explain it to you in a very simple term. So we can't just do curly braces and do data. We can't do that because, number one, React is going to throw out an error that says you can't just do data. You need to encapsulate this in text. You need to extrapolate the data out of it. You got to do some more stuff to it. You can't just show data because sometimes data doesn't exist and it's actually still loading. So what we have to do is we need to create a ternary operator. So initially, what this is a if statement basically that checks a case. So our case is going to be, is it loading? And if it is loading, we want to return something. So ideally, we would want to return like a spinner, but in this case, I'm just going to type in here loading ... And let's say it's done loading. What should we do? Well, in that case, we want to do data. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. We can't just show data here. Let's say we don't have any data to show. Let's say there's an error, the internet is off. Well, we need to actually take care of that as well. So if we just do data and we do another ternary operator, we can say, hey, is the data available? If it is, then fantastic. So I'm going to do data.data.map. So this is going to map over all of the data that we were receiving from the API. And we'll just do anime and key. And inside of here, I'll do return. And we'll do a simple view. And inside of the view, we're going to do a text tag. And inside of the text tag, we're just going to print the title of the anime. So I'm just going to do anime.title. And now let's say that, hey, we don't have any data to show. It's done loading, but there's an error. The way that we're going to handle that is at the end of the ternary operator, we're just going to do curly braces like so, and we'll just show it a text for now that says, whoops, no data available. I think that's how you spell it. Cool. Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and start up our app and see what happens. So I'm going to do npm start. That'll start up our Metro server, and then inside of my emulator, I'm going to go into the actual app manually. Oops, I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the app really quickly. So I'm going to go back into the app, then it's going to bundle everything, and now we can see loading, and then we see all of our anime list. Now initially it is actually checking, hey, is the data cached? If it's not cached, then pull it from the API. If it is cached, then pull it from the cache. So we are going to be working with this a lot throughout the app. So if it's a little confusing right now, don't worry, we're going to do it a lot of times as we make different type of API calls throughout the actual app. We're going to be talking about how to display our data that we got in the last video in a clean list format. So by the end of the tutorial, we'll have two columns that's going to display anime on each side, and we're going to show the images and the titles of the anime. So let's go ahead and get started. So before we do implement this into our application, we got to talk about what we're going to be implementing in the first place. We're going to be using something called a flat list. Now what a flat list is, it allows us to be able to display a list of things that we want. So a list of data in a clean render basic way. So some of the features that they support in the React Native documentation is that it's fully cross-platform. It has horizontal mode, so if you want to make carousels, header support, footer support, separator support. You can do pull to refresh, scroll loading. So like if you wanted to refresh your page, refresh your list, you can do that as well. And you can also have multiple columns, which is what we're also going to be implementing. So here's an example of what that looks like. So if we see in this column, they have a bunch of data. They have 3 items with the title first item, second item, third item, and they are creating this const item, which basically just calls the title key right here and displays it. And what they have to do to display it is they have to call flat list. Now flat list takes a couple of parameters that need to be there. It needs data, it needs to know what item it needs to render and how it's going to look like, and it needs a key extractor. So the first prop data is very simple. It needs an array of objects to be able to pick out the data for, and after that it has a render item. Now this prop, you can consider this is what the flat list is going to look like. So if you pass in render item right here is what they're doing. They're actually creating this function that returns an item.title. Now what this is basically doing is it's sending all of the data that's associated to this array of objects into another function right here outside of the actual app called item, and this is where they're actually doing all the rendering. So you can think of this as a middleman that takes in all the props, and this sends and receives the props and displays it in the way that they wanted. And at the very bottom, they have the styling right there. So at a basic sense, that's pretty much all you really need to know about Flatlist. So let's go ahead and implement it into our app. Alrighty, so the first thing we need to do is we need to define our flat list. Now that's going to be really simple. The first thing we need to do is we need to comment out this text usage right here. And after we comment it out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define our flat list. So it's going to be called flat with a capital F and a capital L with a self-closing brace. Now remember that this flat list takes 3 props out of the box. It needs these. The first one is going to be data, and that's going to be equal to data.data. And after that is going to be render item, which is going to be equal to, you guessed it, render item. Remember that we're going to be creating a middleman that's going to pass our props to our actual area. We're going to define all of our list. And finally, we're going to define our key extractor, which is going to be equal to item arrow function item.id. So we have a unique ID for each item. Now let's go ahead and import it right here, flat list like so. And we need to also define our render item. Alrighty, so now as you can see, render item is coming out as undefined. So let's go ahead and define it. So I'm going to create a new function, and I'm going to call it render item. And this is going to be equal to, we're going to pass it a parameter. It's going to take a prop called item. And we're going to create a function. We'll call it anime list. And the prop name that we're going to give it, let's call it anime obj, which is going to receive item like so. Now it's going to say anime list is not defined. So let's go ahead and define it. We're going to create a new file in the home directory called anime list.js. And just so we have some data or just some content inside of it, I'm going to go and copy my home file and paste it inside of here and change the name of the export. We'll call it anime list like so. And the view, we're going to get rid of everything inside of the view, clean this up. We don't need that, that, or that. Let's call this anime obj. Let's get rid of that. And these two as well. And just to make sure that we have the data, let's go and do console.log anime obj. And now if we save it and refresh, we should hopefully see the data console logged here. We don't. Alright, we also have to import it back here as well. So let's go ahead and do anime list like so, import it. And now we have the data. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and render all this data and make it look all fancy like. So going back into my anime list right here, what I'm going to do is get rid of this console log. We don't need it anymore. And inside of this view, we're going to create something called image background. And what this allows us to do is it's an amazing tag which allows us to be able to add overlays on top of it. So like text overlays or other image overlays or whatever we want, gradients and whatnot. So thankfully, Our image that we want to get and to display in React Native is really simple. It comes as a URL, which is right here, and it's a little bit complicated to get, so just follow along with how I'm going to get it. So I'm going to type in here source is equal to double curly brace URI, which is going to be anime obj dot images dot jpeg. So there's different formats. You have JPEG, PNG, and I don't remember the last one, but those two popular ones. And then after that, we're going to do image dot underscore URL. And so now if we save it, all right, we also have to import it. There we go. So image background. And now we should see one thing, nothing. Well, let's continue on. We'll see it eventually. And so after that, what we're going to do is we're going to create another view tag with a self-closing brace. This is going to be our overlay so that we have some gradient above our text. So it's a little bit easier to know what the text of the anime is. And after that, we're going to do another view tag. And this is going to contain a text, which is going to be called animeobj.title. And if we save it, we should, also have to import that as well. And so now if we save it, we should see our images right here. Although it's not scrolling, we do see our text. It's very light. So now let's go ahead and make this into a column. So to do that, I'm going to give some things some styling. Firstly, we have to define something called a style sheet. Now this is how you can create styles in React Native. Now once we've created the style sheet, I'm going to, outside of my anime list function, create another function called styles, which is equal to style sheet dot create. And inside of these curly braces, we can add a bunch of tags and associate those tags to some CSS. So I'm just going to go and copy and paste. So now that we have all these objects, we need to associate these key names to actual tags here. So the first one that we're going to be associating is the actual image background tag. Now for this one, I called it tiny URL, which has height of 300, width of 150, and some border radius to give it some smoothness. And we're going to give it, so to attach it, you have to do style is equal to styles, so the name of this function variable is equal to, and we can give it tiny logo like so. And now if we save it, we see that it looks a little bit better now. Now after that, we're going to create another style. So we're going to do style is equal to styles dot overlay. Now this is going to give us a little bit of gradient over our image. Now for the next style, we ideally want these text values to be at the bottom and right in the middle of it. So for this view, I'm going to go ahead and give it a style is equal to styles dot push text to bottom. We haven't created this yet, but I'll go ahead and create it at the bottom right here. So I'll do push text to bottom, and this is going to be equal to position absolute, left 0, right 0, bottom 0, justify content center, and align item center. And then after that, we need to, I did style. That's weird. Style, there we go. And so now if we look really hard, we can see that it's at the bottom right there. And now we need to apply some styling to our text itself. So I'll do style is equal to style.text styles. And at the very bottom here, I'll go ahead and call it text styles like so. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna give it the color of white like so. And now we can see it even better. Perfect. So a couple of things we've got to watch out for is that, as you can see, some of these anime titles are really long. We want to make sure that, I haven't seen any this long. Like this one right here, Neon Genesis Evangelion Death and Rebirth. Just in case if it goes over the actual image, we want to make sure that it breaks itself off. So we're going to do adjust font size to fit, and we're going to equal that to be true. You can also just call it properly this, but just to make it more clear, that's the best way you can do it as well. And just in case, we're going to give it a number of lines. So the maximum number of lines that the text can go to is 2, and now we can see that it's 2 right there. Perfect. Alrighty, so now you're probably wondering, well, how do we apply to some styling to the actual flat list itself to make it into two separate columns? Well, I'm glad you asked. So we're going to give it a couple more props. The first one we're going to call is called column wrapper style. And we're going to give it some styling. So we'll do styles dot, oh whoops, we don't have that created here, so I'll create it at the very top right here. So we'll do const styles is equal to style sheet dot style sheet, and import it at the top right here, style sheet, and do dot create, and we're gonna go ahead and call it column wrapper style, and I'm just gonna go ahead and copy and paste it into there like so. So now we have justify content space between and a little bit of padding so it's not all on top of each other like so. And to apply it, all you have to do is styles dot column wrapper style like so. And we also need to give it another prop, which is called num of columns. So now we can define how many columns we want. So we just want 2 ideally, and now we can see that we have 2 columns working perfect. And so now if I try to scroll, we'll see that it is actually working properly and it's pretty smooth. We can see the images of the anime, the text of what it's associated to, and in the next video what we're actually going to be learning is how to, on the click of a button, pass the data, the metadata of that anime into a separate component to display more information about the anime. That might not make sense right now, but it's really cool. It has some learning about how to push P. We're pushing P. We're pushing props. We're pushing React navigation props into another component. Basically, what that means is how do we send more API data for a selected anime into a different screen? And that's where React navigation props come into handy. So this is what we're going to be doing. So for example, if I were to click on this anime right here, Hungry Heart Wild Sticker, Wild Striker, it would open up another screen, and then we should see information regarding that specific actual anime. So let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so there's many ways of going about this, but last time we left off, we went ahead and displayed all of our anime in a scrollable list like this. So what we're going to be doing right now is we need to figure out a way to give it that on-click functionality so that we can actually go to a different screen. And there's something that comes right out of the box for React Native, and that's called touchable opacity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import something called touchable opacity from React Native. Now you can think of this as a button of sorts, where you aren't technically making it into a button, you're just giving a certain image, a certain view, the ability to be clickable. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace this view tag right here with a touchable opacity, and same thing at the very bottom here. And now if we press it, we should see that it has that on press functionality where it looks like it's being pressed whenever I click it. And the next thing I'm going to show you is we want to make it not so obvious that it's being clicked. So we want to make this on press, this little fade, a little less. So to do that, what we're going to do is click active opacity, and we're going to set that to 0.9. So now if we press it, you'll see that it is selecting, but it's a lot less. Now, this is where the on press functionality comes in. So if I pass the prop called on press, and I give it a function like so, I can do something like console.log hello world, and if I scroll to the very bottom of this list, we should see hello world right there. Perfect. So now it's telling us that we're selecting it's being pressed perfectly. So now that we figured out the on press ability, how do we send the user to a different screen to view more information about the anime that they selected? Well, that's really simple. We're going to be using something called use navigation from React Navigation. So I'm going to create a variable right here. I'm going to call it const navigation is equal to use navigation, like so, and I'm going to call it as a function. And this variable now has the ability to navigate to a certain route afterwards. So if I were to do, let's get rid of this console log right here, and let's do navigation.navigate. And inside of here, we have to pass it the screen name that we want to pass it to. So I'm going to call it selected anime. And we also want to send to that new screen the anime data that we've selected for. So for example, if we selected if we selected Trigun, we want to be able to see all the information associated to the Trigun API. So that's going to be really simple. All we have to do is we have to give it a key name. So I'm going to call it selected anime obj, and is going to be equal to anime obj like so. So now when it selects that specific anime, it'll now contain all that information for that selected anime in this key name right here. Alrighty, so now we've set up everything for this section. Now we need to actually create the screen where we're going to host all this information. So inside of the pages folder right here, I'm going to create another folder, and I'm going to call it selected anime. And inside of here, I'm going to create a new file, and I'll call it selected anime.js. And just so we have some information, I'm going to copy whatever I have in my home folder, in my home file. I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to change the screen name, the export default, to be selected anime screen. And let's get rid of all of this right here, just so we have some text. I'm going to put in hello. Let's get rid of this render item, this data right here. We don't need this either. And let's clean this all up right here. We're going to leave the styles as is. We'll use that later on. But now what we're going to do is go into our app.js file. I'm going to copy this stack.screen. I'm going to paste it. And remember, this name has to be the exact same as what we're defining right here. So selected anime. And I'm going to call the component selected anime screen. Alrighty, so go ahead and save it. And now if we test it out, if we click on, let's say, Trigun, it takes us to that screen that we want. Alrighty, so that's mighty fine and all, but I don't see any information for this actual API, this actual anime that we selected. Well, we need to pass in a prop in our selected anime screen to access. So in our curly braces, you need to pass a prop called route. And this route basically will contain all of our information that we need, plus a little bit more extra. So if we console log route, route, there we go, and we click on, let's say, Trigun, we see that in our console we have a lot of information right here. So let me scroll up. Firstly, we have our key, the key associated to the actual screen, the name of the screen, the params, and all of our actual information that we want. So this is what we have to access. So we need to do route.params dot selected anime obj. And so now if we scroll to the bottom, let's say we just refresh really quickly, and we go to Trigun, we should see all of our parameter data. Now that we have all this available to us for that individual selected anime, let's go ahead and display a couple. So I'm going to do text, and let's do something like, well, firstly, let's set this to a variable so we don't have to continuously write that over and over again. Const selected anime data is equal to that. And let's do selected anime data dot title. If you save it, we see our title is right there. Let's say we want airing, so I'll do airing. And finally, let's get a what else is there? Let's do approved. Why not? Sure, that's a pretty basic one. Approved. And so now if we save it, we should see hopefully 3 different variables. Let me just refresh the actual app. So go to Cowboy Bebop, we see that. Oh, that's probably why. Okay, I think I'm not accessing it properly. Let's get rid of these two and let's select something a little bit easier. Let's go with the Japanese title. Why not? Dot title underscore Japanese, and we'll get rid of the last one for now. Let's click Cowboy Bebop, and we see that title right there. Perfect. So now we've accessed our data for that selected anime. Let's do something else. Let's select Naruto, which is my favorite one. We see Naruto and Naruto in Japanese. Perfect. Alrighty, so that concludes this tutorial. It was pretty short, I know, but it is very, very important because this is the fundamental stuff about React navigation that the documentation It's a little bit difficult to learn, but I hope that it makes sense to you and how to work with it. We're going to be implementing video into our app. So whenever a user selects an anime, they will be able to see a video trailer of the anime. So for example, if I click on Trigun, we'll see a video that loads up right here. Now, unfortunately, these trailers are only coming in from YouTube, and YouTube is very, very stringent upon letting users display their videos in-app. But fortunately, I found a really cool package that allows you to do this, and we'll be able to display it. Now, however, there are some anime that just don't have trailers, like Boku no Beat. This one has nothing. So, for example, we're going to be displaying this error right here that says, unfortunately, no trailers available. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so we're going to be using this package right here. It's called React Native YouTube iframe. This is what's going to allow us to be able to grab the video from YouTube and display it into our app. So go ahead and click on the three hamburger icons down below and click on installation. And the first thing we need to do is install something called React Native WebView. Now, initially out of the box, React Native has an ability to get WebView from the web and display it, but this just takes it one step further. So we have to install this package first and foremost. So inside of the app, I'm going to do npm I react-native-web-view and go ahead and run that bad boy. Now, since our app is already above 0.60, that's all we have to do. There are some extra steps if you have it below that, but we're not going to worry about it since we're not doing that at all. So after that, we need to install React Native WebView. React Native YouTube iframe. So go ahead and copy this command right here and go ahead and paste it into your terminal and run the command. Now, once you did do this, that is all you really need to do for Android. To set it up for iOS is a little bit trickier. All you have to do is go and press CD and CD into your iOS folder. From here, you have to run pod install, and then it's going to go ahead and install the entire dependencies that is missing. So I've already installed everything, so it's not going to install anything, but for you, it'll install the WebView and the iframe. Alrighty, so that's all the packages you really need. Let's go ahead and start working with bad boy, shall we? So I'm going to be mainly working the iOS emulator this time around, although the results are going to be the exact same no matter which emulator you use. So I'm going to CD out of my Android folder. I don't know why I was inside of it, but what we're going to do is we're going to run npx react-native run iOS. Now, I know I said I was going to run it. Before I run it, I have to refresh my previous terminal where I did npm start, just so I can grab the whole packages and everything. And so once it's ready, I'm going to run iOS and let it work its magic. Alrighty, so now what we're going to be doing is I'm going to minimize my terminal a little bit just so we have some more breathing room. And we need to create a hook that is going to talk to the Gcn API and get us all of the data from that specific API, the specific anime that was selected. So this is the route that we have to call. We have to call Gcn before anime, the ID number of the anime, and full. So that'll give us the full detail of the anime. And we need to select something called trailer and then YouTube ID. Unfortunately, number 8 does not have it. So let's go and press number 1 and see if that has it. So send the request, and we see right there we have the YouTube ID. So we're going to call this API route right here. And yep. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file inside the hooks folder, and I'm going to call it, let's call it get selected anime info query.js. It's a mouthful right there. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy whatever we had in that previous query and put it inside of here. And we're just going to change up some information. So I'm going to change this to be get selected anime info. Let me make this smaller so we can see. There we go. So we're going to call this get selected anime info, use get selected. Let's make this a capital G. There we go. And now what we have to do is we need to find a way to actually receive the ID that was selected for that anime. So if we click on, let's say this first one right here is ID index number 1. So we want to receive that and return the data for that specific anime. So the way this is going to work is we're going to be calling this this function right here inside of our create selected anime file, and it's going to contain a parameter. So we're going to call that parameter ID. Now we have to take this ID and somehow pass it into this function, which is then going to pass it in the API and then return the data. So the way that we're going to do that is instead of the use query right here, firstly, we have to change the name of this, because if we don't, then it's going to get all boggly woggly and it's going to screw everything up. So I'm going to call it selected anime. So we have that query in place right there. And we have to convert this into a function call basically. So the way that that's going to look is we're going to do curly braces, arrow function, and inside of here we're going to pass in, ID like so. Now once we pass this in, we have it available and we need to pass it inside of this function now. And the way that we pass it inside of that function is going to be really simple. I'm just going to call ID right here like so. And then we have to pass it inside of that URL. And then we can just replace, I think it's, let me just double check what the URL was. Let's just go ahead and copy this really quickly. Paste it inside of this bad boy like so. And we're going to replace this with $ curly braces ID. And we're going to call these backticks right here. Convert them into backticks. And let's go ahead and change the name of this to be selected anime URL. And so now if we format it properly, this is what we got. So let me just quickly explain what's happening here. In this export const variable, we are calling to receive the data. We're actually passing it the ID for that selected anime that we selected. So for example, if you selected Cowboy Bebop, that's ID number 1. So it'll receive number 1 inside of here, and then it's going to call use query, and then inside of the use query we're running this function which we're passing the parameter ID into. And then we go into this function right here. So then we have the parameter ID right here. So we received it from use get all selected anime info, and then we take it and then we just put it inside of the get request right here. And then once we put inside the get request, we're just making a simple Axios call, and then returning the data that we get. And that's it. There's one little thing that I want to add to this query right here, is sometimes it may not refetch every single time whenever we go to new anime. I want to make sure that it does do that. So we're going to be making a curly brace object, and inside of here we're going to call something called refetch on connect, and we're going to do quotes, and we're going to call always. Perfect. So now we're done with calling the API and querying everything. Now we got to go back in the selected anime, and inside of here let's go ahead and start building this bad boy out. So firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import all the stuff that we need. We need a use state and a use callback. And after that, we need to import the YouTube player and the get info query, but those are really long imports, so I'm going to just automatically do it as we go along. So inside of my selected anime screen, I'm going to create a use state variable. So I'll do const playing and set playing is equal to use state. Initially, we'll do false, because whenever a user goes onto the actual screen, it should always not play automatically. After that, we're going to do const data is loading. Remember, this is exactly like we talked about last time with React query, is equal to use get selected anime info, and inside of here we're going to pass in the ID. So remember how last time we talked about how the hell are we going to get the ID? Well, it comes right from this variable right here. So we'll move it to the very top, and we're going to copy this bad boy, and then we're going to call mal_ID. And this is the ID for that specific anime. It's not going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be like 1, 2, 12, 15. Whatever that ID for that anime is, that's what it's going to be. That's it. Alright, so the next part is a little complicated. Just bear with me, follow along, and I'll try to explain as we go along what's happening. So underneath my final text right here, we're going to do curly braces, and we're going to create a ternary operator. This is going to be very similar to the first one that we made, where we checked, is it loading? If it's loading, then display the data. If there's no data, then display an error. So what we're going to do is we're going to call is loading, and then we're going to do question mark, and then instead of these smooth curly braces, if it's still loading, we're going to call text, and we'll just type in here loading ... Now let's say it's done loading, and let's say that there's data available. Well, in that case, if there's data available, we want to display something. So we're going to do view, and inside of the view we need to check another ternary operator. So for this specific ternary operator, we need to check if there's a trailer available. So we're going to do data dot trailer dot YouTube underscore ID, and then we're going to do question mark inside the curly braces, and I'm going to just do the semicolons. So basically, in the first ternary operator, if there's a trailer available, we're going to display it. So I'm going to call in here YouTube iframe with a self-closing brace, and if there's no YouTube available, if there's no YouTube trailer available, we're just going to call some basic text that says no trailer available. And then once we're done with that, let's say there's no data available after it's done loading, then we need to display an error. So in that case, we're going to do the simple text that says whoopsie doopsies, no data available. Perfect. And so now we need to provide some props for this YouTube iframe. Alrighty, so the first prop that we need to do is we need to figure out the height and the width of this screen for the video player. So we're going to import something into React Native called dimensions, and this is basically what's going to allow us to be able to either detect the dimensions for the screen or the window. So above my styles right here, I'm going to create a new variable called const dimensions for screen is equal to dimensions dot get, and inside here we're going to just give it screen. So now we have the dimensions for the screen stored in this variable, and I'm going to copy that and I'm going to give it inside of a prop inside of here. So firstly, I'm going to give it a height, and that's going to be equal to dimensions for screen dot let's not do it for height because that'll expand it all the way across the screen. So let's just give it a height of like 500. But for the actual width part, we'll give it the dimensions. So dimensions for screen dot width, and after that we need to give it something called play. So this prop is going to determine whether it's playing or not. So we're going to give it the useState variable of playing, and then we have to give it the video ID. Now fortunately, in Postman, this API thought of everything. It has a YouTube ID right here, which is stored right there, and that's all we have to call really. So all we have to do is data.trailer.youtube underscore ID, and then we need to check something. Well, before we check that, let's just go ahead and see if this actually works. So I'll save it, and we can see that we have the Cowboy Bebop trailer right there. If we go into a different one, let's say Boku Dingy, we see that there's no trailer available, which is perfect. Let's go to Naruto. I hope there's a trailer. There's no trailer for Naruto? Are you kidding me? Okay, One Piece. And it's private. Well, that's unfortunate. Let's see what's not private. I know Neon Genesis Evangelion isn't. There we go. Okay, cool. That's a trailer for that. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and let's make some cool little theater for this. So like when you play it, it should basically make the screen darker automatically. And if we pause it, it should bring it back to white. Alrighty, so to accomplish that, we're going to use something called use callback. So let me just go ahead and display what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to create a variable called const on state changed is equal to use callback, and inside here we're going to give it a parameter called state, and we're going to create a function. Inside of here we're going to make a couple of if statements. So we're going to do first if the state is equal to ended, then we're going to set playing to be false. Then if the state is equal to playing, then we're going to set playing to be true. And if state is equal to paused, we're going to set playing to be false. And then at the very bottom here, we need to add empty array blocks right there. Perfect. All right, so now I'm going to copy this variable name right here, the function name, and I'm going to create a prop inside of here called on change state. And we're going to go ahead and paste it inside of here. And then after that, we need to, inside of the very parent view right here, we're going to call style, and we're going to say background color. So if the background color has been changed, depending on if the video is played or not. So playing, question mark. If playing is set to true, then we're going to set the background color to be black. If it's not, then we'll just do transparent, like so. And so now if we run it, here, before we do that, let me just go ahead and set height to be dimensions for screen dot height, and we'll do the width to be dimensions for screen dot width. There we go. Let me clean it up a bit. And so now if we run the video, we should hopefully see it turn black. Perfect. And let me go back. Let's find out a different trailer. I think this one has one. Nope. How about One Piece? Nope. Okay. We know Monster has one. Oh my god. Okay, Cowboy Bebop. That should definitely have one. Perfect. So now if I click play, it should automatically perfect. And there we go. And when I pause it, it does that too. And if we go to the very end, I'm going to go up to here. I'll pause the audio, and it should perfect. So now the theater mode is working. We're going to be learning about scroll view, and we're also going to be doing something else. We're going to be splitting up this video component right here, this video player, in a separate component, and we're going to import it so we have some better modularity. And we're going to be considering our selected anime file to be our main hub for all the content that's going to be hosted inside of the actual route. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so what is a scroll view? Well, let me just tell you a small scenario. Imagine we have this emulator right here. We have the Pixel 5 API that has this size screen, and let's say we have a description that extends all the way to the bottom of the screen. Well, some phones are not as long as the Pixel 5, obviously. Something like a Nokia. Some of them might have 3-inch smartphone screens. Well, we want to code for those contingencies. And the easiest way to do this and the smartest way is to use a scroll view. Now, what a scroll view will allow you to do is it allow you to be able to scroll, like you can, on gesture, scroll up and down through the actual screen. Now, you can also use it for lists. However, if you have a large list, it's recommended you use flat list or recycle or list view, which is something we'll cover in the next video. However, right now, in this scenario for the app, we're going to be using it as a method to also scroll through the selected anime screen, just so we can show all of the content that a user has asked for. So let's go ahead and actually implement scroll view into our app. Alrighty, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a new styles. We're going to create a new styles object called container, and it's going to be equal to flex1. Now, every single scroll view has to have an inbound height. So if it does not have an initial height to actually scroll to in the actual screen, then it just won't work and it can lead to errors. So the way that you can use a scroll view is very simple. All you would have to do is just encapsulate all the content you want in a scroll view tag. That's pretty much all you really need. So if I do scroll view here, and at the very bottom of this right here, scroll view, and we imported it at the very top, and if I save it, it should still work. However, we don't have any content to scroll through. So let's go ahead and copy this text tag, and I'm going to just put some empty braces like that and just contain it in here, and we'll just copy and paste this a couple of times just so that we can see something pop up. So now if we scroll through, now we can see that it is working. Now, however, we have this little space right here. That's because our height is too big. So we're going to make it and bring it down to 200, which should be fine. And let's go ahead and add a couple more text tags. There we go. And so now if we scroll, we can see that it is working perfectly. However, we do want to prevent some errors from happening. So that's where our container styles will come in. So right above our scroll view, we're going to create something called a safe area view. And we're going to encapsulate the entire return statement inside of it. And then we're going to provide it the styles equal to, style equal to styles dot container. There we go. Now if I save it, everything should be fine, and it all works beautifully. Alrighty, so before I end the tutorial, I want to add some modularity to the code just so it looks a little cleaner for future building upon new features and stuff. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to take this YouTube iframe and all of the data that comes along with it, and we're going to pass it into a different component. So that it'll be really simple. Let's go ahead and create a new file inside of the selected anime, and we're going to go ahead and call it anime trailer.js. And just so we have some content, I'm going to just copy all this stuff, paste it inside of here, and let's go ahead and change this name to be anime trailer screen. And let's go ahead and get rid of everything inside of here. Well, not everything. Let's go ahead and let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of the safe area view, scroll view. Well, we need the scroll view. Let's replace it with a regular view tag. So we'll do view like so. And fix that up. Get rid of this. Oh, wait. So for some reason, this imported as React Native safe area context. It should actually be just imported from React Native itself. I'm not sure why it imported like that, but let's go ahead and do it like that. There we go. Alrighty, so now what we have to do is we need to get rid of these styles since we don't need it right now. We're going to be passing in the props for this. So let's get the trailer data. And so now I'm going to just go ahead and get rid of this part. Let's just comment it out for now. And I'll comment that out as well. And we'll leave everything as is. And what we're going to do is we're going to just pass in the props for this. So underneath here, I'm just going to go ahead and comment all this out. And at the very top, I'm going to create a import for us. So anime trailer screen. And we'll pass in a prop of, we need to pass in data is equal to, what is data equal to? Data is equal to data. Cool. And whoops, is loading is equal to is loading, like so. And in the other screen, we'll just go ahead and import all of the stuff. So we have data and is loading. Now if we save it, it should be fine, I hope. So selected anime data is not found, so we're just going to go ahead and replace all this information with data. And now, there we go. Okay, so now it's properly working. Cool. So now let's go ahead and go back into the original screen, and we're just going to go ahead and clear out a lot of this stuff since we don't need any of it anymore. We don't need any of that. We don't need, well, we do need let's get rid of that stuff right there. No, oops. I want to get rid of the commented stuff there. So let's get rid of the commented stuff. Let's replace, yeah, since we're already dealing with the ternary operator, I'm just going to copy this, paste it outside of here, and I'll just comment that out, save it. Let's get rid of all of this stuff. We don't need that. And we don't need the styles either. Let's get rid of this as well. Perfect. And let's get rid of the on state changed. Set playing. And we are using that right there. And I guess that should be fine now. So let's go ahead and get rid of it, save it all up. And we know that everything is still working perfectly fine. Alright, so the last thing I want to do for this part of the tutorial is I want to go into the anime trailer, and we're just going to clean up all this stuff that we don't need here, since it is a lot of it. For this component, I feel like it's appropriate to have the title here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the hello. We will get rid of this as well, and let's get rid of all of this text stuff, as well as the empty braces. Alright, so now we have hello. Oh, oops, I gotta save it. Okay. Alright, it's data.title. Okay, so now we have the title showing up there, and we have the trailer, and if we click it, it should be working. There's a little bit of a padding issue. Let me go ahead and fix that. So for the container, what we'll do is let's give it height is equal to dimensions. What is it called again? Dimensions from screen dot height, and it should be extended all the way. Cool. And for this, let's give it some more height. So like 300. You know what? I think 250 should be fine. There. So now if we play it, everything should be working perfectly fine. We're going to be learning a really cool performance enhancing list view called the recycler list view. This is freaking amazing for if you want to render huge lists and if you want to render lists with individual grid cells. But we're not going to be doing individual grid cells today. We are going to be rendering anime recommendations using recycler list view and hooks. So let me just show you guys what we're going to be building. So if I go into, let's say, School Rumble right here, I've created this recommendation that basically pulls all the data from the Jacan API that gives us recommendations for that specific anime, and I can see all of the associated animes to that. And if I go to, let's say, Neon Genesis, I can see all the ones associated to that. Let's go to something like Naruto, and we should be able to see everything like that as well. So, and you can see that there's no frame droppage, even though I'm like scrolling as fast as I possibly can. All the images are cached, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So before we do begin, there's just a couple of changes that I made off screen. I'll just tell you about them right now. I changed this from dimensions for screen.height to be 250. I put the title at the very top. It doesn't matter if there's a trailer or no trailer, it'll still show the title of the actual anime. And if there's no trailer, it'll just show the image of that anime. So for example, Naruto has no trailer, it'll just show the image of the anime right there. And it's all align center. Basically, I converted this into a parent container, basically, gave it the styles called center content, and which is equal to justified content center, align item center, which basically just centerized all that stuff. Not too complicated, pretty basic stuff. Now let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so now what we have to do is we have to create the query to get all of the recommended anime. So I'm going to create a new file and call it get all recommended animes.js. And this is going to be very similar to the previous tutorials where we were pulling all the data for all the other anime. So let me see if I can copy let's copy this one right here. So our get selected info query, paste it into here. And let's change the ending to be recommendations as opposed to full. And let's change this name from selected anime URL to be recommended anime URL. And then after that, let's change this name. Let's call it get anime recommendations. And then let's copy and paste it here, and then we're just gonna go ahead and use it. So use get anime recommendations query, like so. Give it a new name. Let's call it recommend anime. Man, my spelling is awful. Jeez. All right, so now we've created the query and we're talking to the anime API. Let's go ahead and actually create an import for this. So going into my selected anime right here, I'm going to create an import called anime recommendations screen with self-closing brace, and I'm going to pass it in a prop called anime ID, which is going to be equal to selected anime data dot now underscore ID, like so. Oops, there we go. And so basically what this just did was this prop will contain the ID for the selected anime, so then we can pass it inside of here, inside of this ID, and then get all of the recommended anime associated to the one that we're on the actual page for. So now let's go ahead and actually create the screen for this. So instead of selected anime, I'll create a new file called anime recommendations screen. well, let's just leave it as that, .js, like so. And I'll copy all this stuff. We'll paste it inside of here just so we have a good starting point. Let's change the name to the anime recommendation screen. Let's get rid of this, make it into a regular view, and let's give it some text that just says hello, just so we have something there. We'll change this to be anime ID, so we're receiving the props, and let's get rid of this, don't need this or this. We do need use state, and we do need use effect. Let's make it a little prettier, shall we? And that should be good. Let's go ahead and import it into the other file. There we go. So now if I click it, it should just say hello. Perfect. Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and start building out our recycler list view and display all the recommended anime. Now, I will be explaining what each of the individual things mean at the end once we're done building it, just so that we can make everything fairly straightforward, and then I can explain each individual thing in more detail. So firstly, we're going to create something called a data provider. So we'll do const create data provider outside of my anime recommendation screen function. And this is also going to be a function which is going to return new data provider from recycler list view, and it'll have R1, R2, and arrow function R1 is not equal to R2. Perfect. And then after that, we have to create a use state variable. So I'll do const data provider set data provider is equal to react. Oops, we don't need that. We need use state. I think I imported it properly. Yep, use state. Perfect. And initially, we'll set it to be null. And above this, let's go and import the data from the query. So the const data is loading is equal to use get all recommendations query, pass it anime ID like a show. Perfect. And then after that, we will create something called a layout provider. So const underscore layout provider is equal to new layout, new layout provider from recycler list view, and it's going to have an index. Why is it? I think my shift key is broken. Index, there we go. Arrow function, set it to be 0, and then comma type dim function arrow, pass it dim dot width is equal to dimensions for screen dot width, and then dim dot height is equal to dimensions for screen dot height. Perfect. And then after that, we are gonna do a use effect, which is going to have a check. So if is loading is equal to false, and data is not equal to undefined. You can also do if data, but I want to be as specific as possible for any beginners out there. Set data provider, create data provider function called dot clone with rows, and inside of here pass data dot data. And then inside of these array blocks, let's go ahead and pass the dependencies that it needs. So data and is loading. Perfect. And then we can go ahead and start building out our recycler list view. Alrighty, so the first thing we have to do is we got to give this view some styling. So style is equal to width, and we'll give it 250 and a height of 250. Perfect. Let's get rid of the text that says hello, and we're going to provide it is loading. So we're going to check, hey, is the data still coming in or not? So text, if it's still coming in, let's display loading, and let's say we got something, whether it's data or no data. Let's handle those contingencies. So I'll do data question mark, and inside of here we'll just put in a simple view, and if there's no data at all, then we'll just display null, because we're already handling this error inside of the trailer component, if you guys remember that from the last video. So after that, inside of this view, we're going to provide it some styles. So the style is equal to width, dimensions for screen, dot width, and we'll give it some height of 250. And then we're going to give it a recycler list view tag with a self-closing brace. And here we have to give it 3 mandatory props. The first one is going to be layout provider, which is equal to underscore layout provider. And then after that, we'll give it data provider, which is equal to data provider that we created up as a use state variable. And then finally, we're going to give it something called row renderer. This is the equivalent to render item in flat lists. So let's give it some props. We got to give it type, anime data, and index. And then we will give it, oops, not like that. Let's do set it here. We'll call it render list. Give it type, anime data, and index. Perfect. So now if I were to save it, it's going to error out. So let's just save and see what happens. Cool. So it's going to say render list is not a function. So let's go ahead and define that. So we are going to have to import a few things for this to work. Inside of React Native, I'm going to import touchable opacity and image background. And that's really all we need. And then outside of our anime recommendation screen, we are going to create our render list function. So I'll do const render list, and we have to provide us some props that we got. So I'll do type, anime data, and index. And here we can do a const variable called anime obj is equal to anime data dot entry. So the way that this API gives you the data, you get an object and then you get entry and then another object. Inside of that second object, you have all of the recommended anime. So as opposed to typing anime data dot entry over and over again, we can just do anime obj. So after that, we're going to do a return, and instead of the return, I will do a view. And inside of the view, we are going to create a touchable opacity. And I'm going to set the active opacity to be 0.9. Finally, after that, we will do a image background, and we'll provide it a source, which is going to be equal to URI, which is going to be anime obj dot images dot jpeg dot image underscore URL. Perfect. And this is going to look exactly like the main anime list that we have in the homepage. I think it just looks cool. We have the information and the actual text over an overlay. So after that, we are going to provide the image background with some styles. So I'll do style is equal to styles dot tiny image, and then we will give this a view. Let's copy this once more, and inside of the secondary view, we'll give it a text, and whoops, there we go, text. And this text is going to be equal to anime obj dot title. And so the first view with a self-closing brace, we'll give it a style is equal to styles dot overlay. And the second one will do style is equal to styles dot I think this is push text to bottom. Yep, there we go. So now let me make it a little prettier. And let's go ahead and define these inside of our styles object right here. So I'll do tiny image is equal to an empty object. Then we'll do overlay, empty object, whoops, push text to bottom, empty object, and that should be good. I don't think I'm missing anything. Nope, that should be good. Cool. So let's go ahead and actually apply these styles to it. Well, before we do that, let's see if we can actually see the data. We can see it. It's a little strip right there, but if I scroll, you should see right there some more data coming in. Cool, cool, cool. Perfect. Perfect. So for the tiny image, we're going to give it a height of 200 and a width of 100. Give it a border radius, let's do 10, and a margin of 10, just so we have some space between them. And then after that, let's give the overlay, so we'll do dot 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 style sheet dot absolute fill object, border background color, and we'll do RGBA, so we have a little fade behind the actual black. So we have RGBA 0.48, and that should be good for that. And then for the push text to bottom, well, I'm just gonna go and copy it. It's a lot actually, but for the push text to bottom, it's just push position absolute, left 0, right 0, bottom 0, justify content center, align item center. And then finally, I forgot to give this one a style for the text itself. So I'll do styles dot text styles, and then provide it right here. So I'll do text styles, and we're just going to give it a simple color, make it equal to white. Simple as that. And so now if I save it, we see that, hey, it's working. It's still not looking good because we want it to look horizontal, but we see the anime, we see the actual name of the anime. However, we don't see the overlay. I think I messed up with the value for that. Let me see. Here's RGBA. Oh right, I forgot one more 0. So I'll do 0. There we go. Now we see the overlay. Beautiful. Alrighty, so let's provide it some more props for the actual recycler list view and make it horizontal. Give it some pagination and make it look a lot better, you know. So firstly, we have to give it the prop called is horizontal, which will make this run horizontally as opposed to vertically. Perfect. But now we can still see that, hey, I don't want it to, whoops, I want it to be a lot closer. So we're going to give it another prop, which is called force non-deterministic rendering. So now we can see that we have it all very, very close. God, I hate it when that does that. Now we can see it's all very, very close. Perfect. After that, we're going to give it something called snap to alignment. And we're going to snap it to be start. Perfect. And then after that, let's get rid of the horizontal scroll indicator. So I'll do show horizontal scroll indicator, and we'll set it to be false. So the horizontal scroll indicator is this little line that right there. I don't want to see that at all. And I misspelled it, I think. Let me just double check. All right, shows horizontal. There we go. So now it's not showing it anymore. Beautiful, perfect. And after that, let's give it another prop called can it change size. And finally, just in case if we're on a slower device, we'll do a initial render index so we can see a couple of results to be 10. And that should be pretty good. Perfect. So now let's go into another anime. Let's go to my favorite, Naruto, and we should see Black Clover, One Piece, Hunter x Hunter, Bleach. Beautiful, perfect. Let's go to another one. Let's go to Neon Genesis, and we see a couple more anime right here. Perfect. Actually, let's get rid of initial render index because I realized that there may be some recommendations that have like 2, for example, like Neon Genesis, Evangelion, Death and Rebirth. We only have these 2 right here. Perfect. So now we can get the recommendations for each of these animes, and it looks pretty goddamn good. I think so, at least. I also added disable interval momentum. This will help you out as well. But let me just quickly explain to you guys what we did, because we did a lot of stuff regarding recyclable list view. So let's start at the very top with the create data provider. So you can think of the data provider as a function that defines data for each element. So for example, we have Black Clover is associated to Naruto. This is one element. We have One Piece. This is another element. Hunter x Hunter. This is another element. So initially, we're initializing something called create data provider, which creates a data provider. And then if you scroll lower into our use state variable right here, we set it to be null initially. And then once everything is done loading and the data is not undefined, Then we can actually define, we can actually set our data provider to be create data provider, and then clone with rows, and then set our data to be whatever data is available. So in this case, all of these recommended animes will be displayed. Now after that, we have something called the layout provider. This is very useful because this can customize whether you want your layout provider to be how much distance you want between each element, what kind of height you want for each element. But for our case, we didn't really do anything with it. We just set it to be the dimensions for the screen for width and height. But if you play around with layout provider, it can do a lot of really cool things. If you want to customize, let's say you wanted to make this into a vertical recommendation screen, you can do that too. And then have like individual cells that have like the name underneath it or whatever, something like that. But after that, we have the recycler list view itself. And inside of here, we have row renderer. So like I said earlier, row renderer is the equivalent to render item in flat list to recycler list view. And all we're doing is passing something called type, anime data, and index. Now, don't worry about type. We're not going to be really using it. I just put that there as a contingency. But anime data is the data that we're getting from the data provider itself. So imagine you're just sending in here, instead of saying anime data, you're just doing data.data. But we did anime data because it's just easier to understand what's happening there. The index, so if I were to click on this index right here, it would spit out the number for that actual item, as well as, this is the really cool thing, is so if I go into render list right here, I can pass in the index, and then I can get the actual associated anime to that index. So let's say we want Pokemon, I click on it, and then I can get the data associated with that. So I can get the ID for the anime that the API provides, the images, the title, whatever information that index element has. Cool, so we've covered recycler view at a pretty good level. I would highly recommend you customize this recommendation carousel to be whatever you want. Make it look vertically, give it some cells, whatever you want to do, you can do. You have the knowledge now to be able to do it, and if you don't, I highly recommend checking out the documentation. The link to that is in the description down below. We're going to be talking about how to set up a splash screen for our app. Now, this is what our splash screen is going to look like right here on the right side. This is what I've made, is a simple Shiba Inu picture that I got off of, I think, Bixby or Pixar or something like that. But we credited the actual author of it, and well, let me just show you guys what it's going to look like. So I'm going to reopen the app, and you can see that we've replaced the logo image to this little Shiba Inu with that with any anime list and the logo. So if I click on it, you'll see that really quickly you see the loading screen, and then it goes into the app. I've tried to slow it down, but it just doesn't slow down. But there's another example right there, and the app loads. So let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so I found a way to actually make it stand still. This is what it's going to look like right here. The first thing we need to do is we need to install the actual dependency called React Native Splash Screen, and the way to do that is by a simple command called npm react-native-splash-screen-save. And then once you've done that, after that, what we're going to do is we're going to have to initialize the thing, because for some reason my React-native link doesn't work, and it's better to also figure out how do we actually link dependencies if we don't have the ability to do it. Alrighty, so I've also opened up the documentation right here. It's just easier to actually be able to copy the code, and I can show you guys exactly what to copy from and put into our app. So the link to this is in the description down below. And the first thing we need to do is we need to open up our settings.gradle file. So I'm doing Command P or Control P for Windows, and I'm going to search up settings.gradle. And inside of here, we're going to go ahead and put this little snippet of code at the very bottom, right above the if statement, and save that bad boy like so. And then after that, we need to open up our build Gradle, and it should be the build Gradle for our app, not just a regular one. So once you open that up, then we need to search up implementation, so our dependencies, and inside of there, we need to add an implementation. And we need to implement our React Native splash screen like so. So after that, we're actually gonna skip this part. We don't actually need to do it. This is a little bit outdated version of the actual method, and in the current version, you don't actually need to do this step. So after that, we're gonna scroll a little bit lower, and then we're gonna go to Android. So in the Android, they're telling us to open up our main activity and to update it. So I'm gonna open up my main activity, and at the very top, I'm gonna go ahead and just import this first import right here, since our React Native splash screen version is greater than 0.3.1. We're gonna go and just import it and put it right up there. Get rid of this comment like so, and then in our onCreate, I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this splash screen.show and just paste it right above there. Let's get rid of that and save it. Perfect. So the next thing we need to do is we need to create an XML file, which is basically, you can think of an XML file as, if you ever worked with Figma, an outline of how the app is going to look like. So we can use an XML file to actually create certain screens and to show what they're going to look like. And that's a really powerful thing about Android, is that you can actually control that ability through Android Studio. However, through VS Code, you don't really have that ability. But what we're going to be doing is, inside of our res right here, we're going to create a new folder called layout. If you don't already have it, I already have it made right here. Go ahead and create it. And instead of that, we're going to create a new file called launch_screen.xml. And inside of there, we're going to go ahead and paste this little snippet of code, which basically is all it's going to do is going to take our splash screen, and then it's going to extend the actual image by the entirety of the screen's width and the entirety of the screen's height. So for example, let me show you what our splash screen looks like. So basically it would take this image and then expand it to the entire device, so it fills up the entire screen. So after that, what we're actually going to be doing is we need to take this image and then we're going to plop it right into our drawable folder. So I'm going to go ahead and drag it and paste it right into there. And I'm going to go ahead and actually change the name too, because new project is not a good name for this. Let's call it splash screen.png. And then we're going to open up our launch screen.xml file. And if you scroll a little bit to the right in the image view tag, you're going to see this little source is equal to. This is basically like, if you think about it like an import for an image, you're basically importing it into this tag. And we're going to change the name from launch screen to be splash_screen, like so. Perfect. So the steps after this are optional. Basically, they allow you to be able to change the color of the actual status bar of the app, and allow you to define all that cool stuff like that. So since our actual splash screen's background is blue, it would make the actual status bar blue. However, we're not going to worry about that, since it's not really required, since it's just a basic beginner app. So after this, we're actually going to go ahead and open up our app.js file, and we're going to import something called splash screen. So import splash screen from React Native splash screen. And then all we need to do is we're going to create a use effect. And it looks like it imported from the wrong thing, so I'm just going to delete this part and paste it right here. And then all we have to do is we have to give it splash screen.hide. So basically, whenever the app is ready to be displayed, it will then go ahead and hide the splash screen to actually display the app. So let me just make it a little prettier. There we go. Alright, so now if we test out our app, it should hopefully maybe work. So I'm going to just reload the app, and then we should see eventually it reopens, shows the splash screen. Perfect. Alrighty, so the next thing we need to talk about is how do we actually replace this app icon to look a little bit better. So this is the app icon that I built. It's just the Shiba Inu, the name of the app, and the credit of the actual pic for the Shiba. And the way that we're going to create this is go right back into here. We're going to go to a website called I think appicon.co. Yep. And then all you have to do is you have to just give it the image. So make sure that the image is actually 1024 by 1024, or else it doesn't look the best. And then go ahead and uncheck all of these values, and then just keep this one checked. And then call the file name whatever you want. I'm just gonna call it app app logo. Go ahead and generate that bad boy, and then let me just minimize this stuff. Once you have generated it, it should create this zip file. Go ahead and open it up, and then I'm gonna delete the previous one. And then once you've opened the folder up, then you'll see a bunch of different folders inside of here. Go ahead and open up this Android folder, and we're just gonna take all of these, and we're gonna replace whatever this mipmap folders are inside of the res folder. So drag it and paste it into the res folder. It'll ask you, do you want to replace it? It's irreplaceable. Go ahead and replace every single one of them. And this won't work right now because it still needs to actually get targeted towards the actual images. Whoops, I don't know why I open up every single image, but sorry, every single folder. So inside of the Android manifest.xml file, you're gonna want to change these two names to be the actual name of the image right here. So since we don't have a rounded image, I'm just gonna give it that one right there. And now if I were to reload everything, and let me go ahead and open up my emulator. My emulator just disappeared. Oh, there we go. Okay. So if I were to back out, go up, we see that our actual app image logo has changed, and we have our splash screen. So let's see that in full action. So we have our app logo image and splash screen right there. App loads, fine, beautiful. Cool, so that was pretty simple. We learned how to change our app image and our app splash screen. Today I want to show you guys a new way to load images very, very fast into our anime app. Now, the reason that I want to show you guys this, it'll be very clear. If I were to go back into the app, I have opened up Cowboy Bebop already, but let's say if we go into this anime Cowboy Bebop, this thingy right here, if we were to scroll through all these anime, it is going to load. Oh, that's a very short list. Let's go back to Cowboy Bebop. So if I were to scroll through this is going to be loading very, very slowly. We don't want this little issue to happen right here. We want these images to load quickly and receive from the cache immediately. And that's where a library called React Native Fast Image comes in. This allows us to be able to load a ton of images very, very fast, cache them, prioritize how fast they load. They have GIF supporting, border radius, and a whole lot of cool stuff. And it's very simple to implement. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to install the actual dependency itself. So I'm going to do npm I react-native-fast-image and let it work its magic. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is link our iOS app to this dependency. And the way that we're going to do that is just do pod install. Oops, we have to go into the iOS first. So cd iOS and then just do pod install. There we go. Alright, so the way this is going to work is very, very simple. I've opened up our anime list.js file, and what we're going to do is we're going to replace our image background with something called fast image. So if I were to select both of these, select both of them, and I just do fast image, and we import it from React Native Fast Image like so, we need to give it a couple of properties. So we've already given it the property source is equal to URI, and we're giving it the image URL. We can also define other things as well. So let's say we wanted to give it headers, we can give that as well, but we don't have any headers to give since it's a public API. We can give it something called priority. This is basically how fast are we wanting the image to load. So let's say we want to do fast image dot priority dot high. This will use more of your processing power for the phone, but it will load the images a lot faster. And so now if we scroll through our anime list, we've already cached the information initially on our initial load, and now the images load a lot faster. So now let's go ahead and do the anime recommendations list as well. So if I open up our selected anime recommendations file right here, let's go ahead and replace this image background with fast image. In the source, we give it the URI, and of course, we're going to give it the priority. Same thing, fast image dot priority dot high. Now, Initially, this won't work properly the first time. Let's say this user has never used this app before and they just go on Cowboy Bebop. It'll be laggy the first time, but the second time they go through it, it'll be a lot faster. So if we were to cache all the images, go through the entire list, go back, and we go right back into it, we should see it loading a lot faster. Yeah, there we go. I'm trying to scroll through as fast as I can. But you can see that is a lot faster. And the way that we can also check that this is being cached is by going to the actual app's information, and we can see from there. And so just to make sure that we do have that working, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the app and click on app info by holding onto the app icon, and then we're going to go into storage and cache, clear the storage, and it'll automatically clear the cache as well. Then we're going to go ahead and reopen it, and we're going to compare two different numbers. So let's say I were to go into Cowboy Bebop right now. Not all the information is loaded at the end, but if I go right back into the app info, we see we have 116 megabits of cache stored. And if we were to scroll through the entire list, it's a huge list, dude. And then we go back into the app info, we should see that it increased as well. So the images are uncached, and then they'll be loaded even faster the second time. And so just to make sure it's all working on iOS as well, I open up the emulator, and I'm going to just scroll through it a little bit. I'm trying to scroll through it as fast as I can. For some reason, this is very slow. And I'm going to go to the very top and go to Cowboy Bebop. And I'm just going to scroll through this as fast as I can. For some reason, it's very, very slow. I'm going to assume that it's working. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now if I trying to scroll through as fast as I can, but we can see it's obviously working, and it's also caching here as well. That's pretty much all you really need to know about fast image, React Native fast image. If you want to check out the docs for other props that you can access, such as preloading, it's all in the description down below. We're going to be learning about how to set up React Native Firebase, and in this little sub-series of this course, we're going to also learn how to set up dynamic linking, so we can share a specific anime to anybody who has an Android device, and it'll open up to that specific anime. And we're going to be creating dynamic links. So we're going to create a HTTP request to create new dynamic links that we can share with anybody. And the way that dynamic links are going to work in our app is, for Android specifically, if they do have the app installed, if they open up, I've made one test dynamic link right here. If they open up this link and they have an Android app installed and they have the any anime list app installed too, then it'll open up the app like so right there. And let's say that they don't have the app installed and they're on an Android device, then it'll take them to the Play Store, the Google Play Store. And if they're on, let's say, a desktop, then it'll actually open up to the specific fallback link that Jacan API has provided. And in our case, that would go to this My Anime list right here. And this is going to be dynamic for each and every single anime that we do end up sharing. And specifically for iOS, we're only going to learn how to set up React Native Firebase for iOS. We're not going to be doing anything with it because apparently it costs $99 to set up a developer account annually, and I'm not going to pay that because I think it should be free to put up an app on the iOS Play Store. That's just my own opinion. But we're going to continue with the developing process of this. We're not going to be able to put this app up unless I find a way to make it free or something. I don't know. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get. Alrighty, so the first thing you're going to want to do is go to the Firebase console. The way to get there, just go ahead and Google Firebase and then click on the first link right here. And then click on the top right corner that says go to console. And then all we want to do is go ahead and click on create a project. Once you've clicked on that, go ahead and give the name of the project. I'm going to call it any anime list. And then I'll accept the terms. Go ahead and click enable for that. I'm just going to go ahead and create a project from there. And it's going to create the project. Let us do its magic in the back end. And now that that's done, go ahead and click on continue. And then on the top left corner, let me make this a little bigger. On the top left corner, click on this gear icon and click on project settings. Now this is where we're going to be adding our Android and iOS app to connect to this specific project. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and do the Android installation first. Now, the first thing we need to do for that is we need to install React Native Firebase. And the way that we're going to do that is just to npm I -- save at react native -- app. Alright, so that package is a must to install for any of this to work. The next thing you want to do is scroll to the very top of your folders. Go ahead and click on Android, your app, source, and then inside of there, go ahead and click on this Android manifest.xml, and then go ahead and copy your package name. Now, this is going to be required for the Android installation part. So after this, go ahead and click on the Android icon right here that says there are no apps in your project, and then go ahead and copy your package name. I'm going to give it app nickname any anime list Android, and then we need to give it something called a SHA-1 certificate. We are going to be doing this since it's required for dynamic links, Google sign-in, phone number, and all that sort of good stuff. So to generate a SHA-1, what we have to do is we need to do cd Android, and then we need to do /Gradle, and then W, and then we need to do signing report, and then it's going to give us our SHA-256 and SHA-1. And so for our app specifically, we did install a couple of different dependencies that we connected to Android. So we have React Native Web View, we have React Native Splash Screen, image, all that sort of stuff. We want to ignore all of those and go to the very top where it says app signing report. This is the one that we want. And then go ahead and copy your SHA-1, which is this bad boy right here. And then after that, go back into our project creation. Go ahead and paste it into there, register the application, and then it's going to give us a config file that we're going to download once this is completed. And then go ahead and click download Google services.json, click next, and then after that we want to add our Firebase SDK. Alright, so after that we need to add our Google services JSON file inside of our Android folder. Inside of Android we're going to go into app, and this is where we're going to add the Google services. So just go ahead and drag it and drop it right into there. Alright, so after that we need to add some configurations to our build Gradle to connect Firebase implementations and everything. So I'm going to search for the file called build.gradle, and we're going to go on the second one, that's just /Android, and inside of here we need to add a couple of things. So inside of the dependencies section right here, we're going to add this class path Google Services 4.3.1.3. And then just to make sure that we have Google and everything connected to it. We don't have Google, so let's go ahead and add, oh, we have Google right there. Okay, perfect. So that's really all we need for that. Alright, so after this, we're going to have to open up our other build Gradle file. So I'll do build.gradle, and we're going to open up the Android /app/build Gradle. And at the very top of the file, underneath our Android application, we're just going to go ahead and paste apply plugin com.google.gms.google services. And that's all you really need for the entirety of the Android setup. Now let's go ahead and do the iOS setup. So for the iOS section, go ahead and click on Add App in your project settings. Click on iOS, and then we want to give it our app bundle ID. And the way that we're going to find this is actually going to be through Xcode. So go ahead and open up Xcode. Alright, so to find your bundle identifier, go ahead and click on your main project folder. And then inside of there, you're going to see the General tab. And inside of there, you're going to see the bundle identifier here. I know you probably can't see it because I've been trying to figure out how to zoom in to Xcode for the past like 30 minutes and I still haven't figured it out. That's besides the point. This is what we're going to have to paste into here. And I'm just going to copy it from signing and capabilities and just put it inside of there. And I'm going to call it any anime list iOS, register the app, and then download the config file whenever it's ready. Alright, cool. So once you've downloaded it, what we're going to do is we're going to have to drag it into our main directory right here. So just go ahead and drag your plist and paste it inside of there. Go ahead and click finish, and that's all you need to do. Next, we're going to go back and away from this godforsaken Xcode and back to VS Code. Alright, cool. So once you're back in your VS Code, zoom in a little bit more, you're going to open up your iOS folder, and inside of here, you're going to go ahead and find your app-delegate.m, which is going to be right here. Right here. So app-delegate.mm, and at the very top, we're just going to go ahead and do #import firebase.h with the alligator mouths around it, And then we're going to scroll a little bit down until we see something called did finish launching with options. And at the very top of it, we're just going to do brackets fir app dot, oops, not dot configure, just configure, like so. There we go. And after that, we're gonna have to alternate CocoaPods to use the framework for Firebase. So we're gonna go into our pod file right here, and at the top, we're just gonna do use underscore frameworks with an exclamation mark, and then right below our require relative, we're gonna do $rn Firebase as static framework is equal to true. And there's always been an issue with Flipper configuration, at least working with Firebase React Native. So we're going to go and just comment this out. And then once that's done, we're going to go ahead and install our pod. So we're going to do, I think it was cd iOS. And inside of there, we're going to run pod install --repo -update. So there seems to be a little bit of a typo. I forgot to do, instead of ID, it should be apply plugin, like so. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and start up our app for both Android and iOS, and it should work for both, hopefully. Oops, cd into React Native, and then we're going to do npx React Native run iOS, and hopefully it should all work dandy. So we have a little bit of an issue. Forgot to add a semicolon at the end of our, where is it? Right here. We need a semicolon there. Just like Java. And so now if we run a fresh build, so I'm going to do npm start, and then I'm going to do npx react-native run Android, and then I'm going to do npx react-native run iOS. We shouldn't see any errors, and both emulators should be turned on, so we have, perfect, we have our Android one on, and then hopefully soon our iOS as well. Perfect. Alright, so that concludes this tutorial on setting up React Native Firebase for iOS and Android. Now, we're going to be continuing developing this app through iOS and Android, but we're not going to be doing dynamic linking for iOS at all. And we're not going to put the iOS version of this app on the Play Store either, because apparently it costs $99 and I'm not going to pay that. I believe that it should be free, because that should make sense in my mind, how it is on the Play Store. Yo, welcome back everybody to another video. So in the last video we learned how to set up React Native Firebase onto our project for both iOS and Android, and in today's video we're going to be talking about how to set up dynamic linking. And we're going to be creating dynamic links on the fly using REST requests. So for example, let's say if I were to click on Cowboy Bebop right here, I created this little share icon right here that if I click on it, that it will then open up a little text that says check out this cool anime, bro. And then it creates a page link right here. So this is our dynamic link. And this page link was actually created on the fly immediately. So let's say I paste it. Imagine I'm sending this to a user. Now, let's say the user already has the app installed. What will happen is then it'll open up to that exact same anime, and let's say the app is turned off. What's going to happen is it'll turn on the app, and then it'll open up the home page and then immediately redirect to the actual selected anime page. And let's say what happens if the user doesn't have the app installed. Well, it'll be really simple. What's going to be happening is that it'll direct them to the Google Play link for our application. And let's say that they don't even have this created, like let's say they don't even have this on, let's say they're trying to open this up link in a desktop. What will happen in that case? Then it'll actually open up the anime list page. So let me show you what that looks like. So I've opened up my browser, and let's say I were to paste in the link right here. What's going to happen is it'll open up the My Anime List listing for that specific anime. And I'm going to make it as easy to understand as possible. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so to make React Native Firebase dynamic links work, we need to install a couple of dependencies initially. The first one we need to install is going to be, so we're going to do npm I at react-native Firebase/analytics, and at React Native Firebase/app. This is if you don't already have this installed. After that, we need to do at react-native -firebase / dynamic links. I think that's dynamic links, like so. Oh, wait, dynamic -links. There we go. And then once we've done that, we need to install it for iOS as well. So we're going to do a cd iOS, and then we're just going to do pod install. Or so now what we have to do is we need to test if our dynamic links works. Just make sure everything is configured properly. We're going to create a manual dynamic link. So go ahead and open up your Firebase console, and then what you want to do is go ahead and click on the Engage tab, and then click on Dynamic Links. It'll take you to this page right here, and then click on Get Started. And from there, you can provide a domain. This is where all of your dynamic links are going to be hosted underneath. I don't have a domain, so I'm going to use a Google provided one. So I'll just type in here, let's call it any anime list URL prefix .page link. It's not, can't be capitals. There we go. It's not the best name, but it should be more than enough. And then click continue. And then after that, it'll automatically verify and get approved to use. Click on finish. And then now we have our URL prefix made. Now we can create our manual dynamic links. Alright, so now we can create a dynamic link manually. And the way to do this, you're going to click on this blue button that says new dynamic link. And then it's going to give you a URL prefix. This is what you're going to be sharing to different users. That will check if the app is installed on the device. If it is, to open it up and to do whatever you want from there. But if it isn't installed on the device, then it'll go to their respective Play Store, or if they're on desktop, then it'll open up the fallback link. So go ahead and click on next, and after that you need to provide a deep link URL. So this is going to be your fallback URL. Let's say if the app is not installed and they don't even want to even try to go to the Play Store, this is where they should redirect to. So what I'm going to be taking them to is the My Anime listing for Naruto, and I'll just type in here Naruto for the deep link name. And then after that, for Apple behavior, if you're using, we already set it up for iOS, so you can click on Apple app and then you can provide it. But since we're not going to use it for Apple, we're just going to put it as a browser. And then after that, for the Android behavior, we want to open up in the Android app. And we're going to leave everything as is. And we don't need to add any campaign tracking, social tags, or anything, since that's not required. And then go ahead and click on create. So now we've created our page link. So if I were to copy this URL and I opened up my emulator, so I've opened up my emulator and I pasted in the link right here, and if we were to hold it and we were to open up the link, it should open up the app, which is perfect. And if you were to open this up in a browser, it should go directly to the Naruto listing, which is exactly what we want. So now let's go ahead and using RESTful routing, using CRUD, we're going to make a post request to Firebase to create a new dynamic link every single time for each different anime right here. So if I were to go on Trigun, it'll create a link for that, and then we can redirect right to there. Alright, so go ahead and open up your VS Code, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new file, and we're going to create it underneath our selected anime file. So we're going to call it shared, we're going to call it shared anime.js. And inside of here is where we're going to handle all of the functionality to be able to share a custom dynamic link. So first and foremost, what we're going to do is we're going to call this function const shared anime is equal to, and we're going to give it two parameters. So we're going to give it fallback URL and anime ID. And we're going to give it a return. And underneath everything, we'll just go ahead and do export default shared anime. I know we could always just do export here, but I like to just put it at the bottom right there. And just so we have some sort of text there, what we're going to do is we're going to just give it a simple view. And instead of that view, we'll just give it a touchable opacity that we have to import from React Native. And inside of there, we'll just type in here, let's give it a text. Inside here, let's give it share this anime. Alright, and let's go ahead and import all the stuff that we need for this to work. So at the top of the file, right here, we're going to do import react, and we'll do use state from react. And after that, we'll do import view text style sheet dimensions, we don't really need that, touchable opacity, and share from React Native. And then finally we're going to do import Axios from Axios. There we go. Alright, so the first function that we're going to create is the build link function, and I've opened up the actual documentation regarding this function to create a short link. And so we need to give it some parameters, sorry. So we need to make it a post request, send it to this URL with our API key, and I'll show you how to get that as well. We need to give it the content type of application JSON, and this is the data that we need to pass it into. We're not going to do anything with iOS, so don't worry about that. But if you will use iOS, then go ahead and add that too. So firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to create a function called const build link is equal to async, and then we'll just do let link is equal to await Axios, and we're going to give it the method of post and the URL, and we're just going to go ahead and copy this URL. Don't worry, this actual page is in the description down below, so go ahead and open that up. And the key that we're going to give it, let's use backticks instead. It's more modern. So just like that. Perfect. And then after that, we're gonna have to give it some headers. Comma headers, and that's gonna be content dash type is equal to application dash slash JSON. And then after that, we need to give it data. And this data, let's go ahead and copy this this object right here, starting from here all the way to this point down there. Perfect. And so the actual URI prefix, I'll show you how to get that as well. The link, don't worry, so the link is actually going to be equal to what we have up here called fallback URL. Don't worry, I'll show you what that means in a bit. And the actual package name, whatever your package name is for your application. In our case, it would be com.anime, anime list. And I'm going to get rid of iOS info since we're not doing anything with iOS. But if you did, you would put in your iOS bundle ID right there. And then after that, at the end of the Axios call, we're going to do if link.status is equal to 200. If the request goes through properly, we're going to return link.data.short link, like so. And that's pretty much all we need to do. All we have to do after this is to run the build link function on the click of a button. But before we do that, we have to take care of two things. We need to give it a key that we talked about earlier and the domain prefix. Well, where do we get this key from? It's really simple. Go ahead and open up your Firebase console. Inside of your project settings, your web API key is what you want. Don't even bother trying to copy this. It's already deleted. Like, the app doesn't exist anymore. But if you don't see your web API key here, what you want to do is click on your authentication section of your Firebase console. If you don't know where that is, it should be under build. Click on authentication. All you have to do is just go to it. You don't have to do anything else. After that, you need to go back to project settings, and then it should be available to you right there. Go ahead and copy it, and I'm gonna actually get rid of my squiggly braces. Ideally, you would put this key in a .env file so it's not pushed to the internet, but we're just gonna put it into it just like that. And the next thing we need to do is the domain URI prefix. Where do we get that? Pretty simple. We go back into our dynamic link section, and it's actually this bad boy right here. I'm gonna go ahead and just copy this and paste it inside of here like so. Get rid of all of that. Oops. There we go. And make it prettier. Perfect. So now we've set everything up for building the link. Let's now set up a method to share the link. Alright, so to do that, underneath my build link function, I'm going to create a function called const share link is equal to async. Inside here, we're going to give it a let share URL is equal to nothing right now. Then we'll do a quick, I think it should be try catch block. So we'll do try catch, so console.log error, if it doesn't work out, and we'll do share URL is equal to await build link, and just in case, we're just going to make sure that it's returning something, so we'll do console.log share URL, and oops, underneath this try catch block, we're going to create another try catch block that's going to basically open up a little modal that's going to allow you to share. So else console.log error. So inside of this try catch block, we're going to do if share URL is not equal to empty string. We'll do const result is equal to await share dot share. We're going to give it a message, and this message is going to read here, check out this cool anime, bruh. And let's do backticks instead of that. Let's be modern here. There we go. And $, curly braces, we're going to pass in here share URL. And that's pretty much it. So now this message, this share message is going to hold here, check out this cool anime bro, and then our custom made dynamic link. So after that, we're going to do if, well, we don't really need to do that. Let's just try that from here. So now let's go ahead and pass share link, this function, to our touchable opacity. So we'll do on press. We'll just call share link, like so. And that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and also import the actual shared anime inside of our selected anime.js file. Now if we click this, it's actually going to break, it's not going to work. It's going to come out as undefined. Now the reason that's happening is because our fallback URL isn't set to anything. So just for testing purposes, I'll just do google.com. And so now if I were to click share this anime, it just shows that. Let's do https://www.google.com. And so now if I click it, there we go. So now we can see that we have our custom made link right there. Now if we were to click this, all it's going to do is just going to open up the app. It's not actually going to go into our selected anime of Trigun. So now let's go ahead and go to the next part where we're actually going to pass in the fallback URL. Now what the fallback URL is going to be, like I talked about earlier, it's going to be that Naruto listing my anime list page. The Jacan API actually provides a fallback URL, so we're just going to use that. In your case, if you have one, you can use that. Well, you should use that. If you don't, you can just use something like google.com or whatever is your preference, honestly. So before we pass in the fallback URL, let's go ahead and get rid of this const result. We don't actually even need that. I'm not too sure why I even added it. But go ahead and open up your selected anime.js file. And inside of here, we're going to firstly import shared anime. Oops. I'm not sure why it disappeared. I thought I already passed it in. But we need to pass it in one parameter, one prop, called fallback URL. And that's going to just be equal to fallback URL once we made it. And so now let's make it. So above my route.param selected anime object, I'm going to do const fallback URL and set fallback URL is equal to use state. Initially, let's set it to null. And then after that, we're going to do a use effect, which is going to have data passed at the end right here. And instead of here, we're just going to check if data if data exists. We're going to do set fallback URL to be data.data.url. And the way that I know that this data.data URL is equal to a fallback URL is because inside of the hook, this request right here actually contains all of the information about that specific anime, description of the anime, the pictures of the anime recommendations based upon it, and the fallback URL. So that's what we're doing here. We're just passing it in the URL, and then we're passing it as a prop right there. And so now, if I actually, just gonna make sure that we're passing it in here as well. Where is it? Fallback URL. Oh, right there. Okay, perfect. So now, if we test it out, it should actually work. Perfect. It created a dynamic link for us. And so before we proceed on actually allowing a page link to redirect to a specific anime, I want to just add an extra precaution that makes sure that a fallback URL is present before even sharing this anime. So let's do fallback URL. We'll make a ternary operator, and if it's equal to true, we're just going to pass it in shared anime like so, and else we'll just do null. So this makes sure that, let's say, Sunabozo doesn't have a shared URL or fallback URL, then it won't actually even show this in the first place. And that's exactly what we want from a user's perspective. So now, let's go ahead and go into our home.js file where we're going to take care of rendering the actual anime and handling the dynamic link as well. Alright, so the next part is a little trickier, but I'll do my best to explain it as easy as I can. So basically, with handling dynamic links, there's a couple of different states that you have to make sure you're handling. Initially, you have to state of if the app isn't even on, to open up the app and then to render the actual, then to handle the actual dynamic link, or if the app is already running, then to handle the dynamic link. So what we're going to do is we're going to handle the first case, which should be if the app isn't even on. And so to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a function underneath our render item called const handle dynamic link is equal to use callback. However, there is already an example in the React Native Firebase documentation about this, but in this specific scenario, we're going to use a use callback to handle this dynamic link if the application is completely turned off. So I'm going to do async link, and basically we're passing in the parameter of link, and let's pass that in as well. And inside here we'll give it navigation like so. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to do if link.url exists and it's not equal to null, we're just going to do console.log link. And the way that we're going to call handle dynamic link is actually a little bit funky. We're going to create a use effect that is going to initially, we're going to create a variable called const subscribe. Oops, const unsubscribe, which is something that you should not do from this channel if you've already done it, please. And then after that, we're going to import dynamic links. God, I don't know why my laptop doesn't actually even allow me to import things properly anymore, but import dynamic links from at React Native dynamic links. There we go. And so now we're passing it in right there. And then after that, we'll do on link. We'll pass in the param of handle dynamic link. And then after that, we're just going to do return a function and run unsubscribe. And then we're going to pass in here handle dynamic link. Let's make it a little bit prettier. And let's see what this is yelling at us about. Dynamic links is not. Oh, oops. Dynamic. There we go. And so now, let's go ahead and update this. Well, I'm going to leave it right there as is because we're going to add it soon. So let's click on an anime and let's click on share this anime. Let's copy this and let's open up a notepad and paste it in. And remember, keep an eye on your logs. So now if we open it, it should open up the app. What the hell? Terminal. There we go. So now you see that we have this log right here, which is very important. This contains the minimum version, which is null, our URL, which is the thing that we need, and UTM parameters, which doesn't really matter. Now this URL is actually what we're going to be using to display the exact anime screen that we want. It's because of this little number 6 right here, this little ID. This is what we're going to actually pass into React.navigation to render this actual screen. So let me show you how that's going to work. Now before I continue, with handling this. This is the part where this really depends on how you're going to handle this link. In our case, what we're going to do is, well, let me just show you what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is create a variable called const selected anime URL is equal to backticks https://api.gcan.mo/v4/anime $, and inside here we're going to pass in link.url and .match. This is the part where it says it really depends on how you're going to pull it out, but what we're going to be doing here is we're basically going through this entire link and we're just checking wherever there's a number, and in this case we're going to get the number 6. So we're just checking if, just give me the number, that's all we're doing here. So I'm going to do, this is regex, never understood it, never gonna understand it, never want to understand it. So basically what this little doohickey right here function does is it checks this entire URL for a number, and it actually, for some reason, it spits it out in an array block, so then we're going to have to do the 0th index of it. I don't understand why. Regex do be like that though. They do be like that. And after that, we're going to do const response is equal to await axios.get selected anime URL, and if response exists, then we're going to do navigation.navigate, and we're going to navigate to the selected anime screen, and we're going to pass it in the parameter, you guessed it, the number. So we're going to do selected anime obj, and we'll do response.data.data. This response.data.data actually contains all of the data for that specific anime, so it would actually contain all the data for Trigun. And so now if we save it, alright, so now let's go ahead and try this bad boy out. Now before we do that, I just realized that there's a little typo. We want to do a slash right after anime right here, and I sort of got this a little mixed up. Apparently what we're actually handling right here is if the application is still on, not completely turned off. We'll handle the completely turned off section in a bit. But now if I were to share this anime, copy this URL, don't know why I created it again. Let's just make it, copy the URL and paste this bad boy into a notepad, and let's go ahead and open this bad boy up. It should hopefully go to Trigun. Perfect. Let me back out one more time because I got a little superstitious there. I thought it didn't. Did it work? It works. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and handle the scenario if the application is completely turned off. Alright, so to handle that scenario is going to be really simple. We're going to create another use effect. Ideally you could put in the same use effect, but I like to just keep it separated just so I can tell what's happening. We're going to pass in navigation inside of here, and we're going to, ideally we should do it inside here, yes. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a function called fetch screen, should be fine, is equal to async, async arrow function like so, and well, it's going to be exactly the same as what's happening here. Well, pretty similar, but there's going to be a little bit of differences. So I'll do const get initial link is equal to await dynamic links dot get initial link, and this is actually coming straight from the documentation too. So if get initial link is not equal to null, and if get initial link dot URL exists, then we're gonna just go ahead and copy this little section right here and paste it inside of here. And then if everything exists and everything is working fine outside of this if block, inside of the if block, that makes more sense. Inside of the if block we'll do axios dot get selected anime URL dot then I don't know why we're doing it like that. Let's not do it like that. Let's do it. Let's just copy it exactly what we have right here. I don't know why we're changing it. That's pretty much all we need right there. There we go. And then we're just gonna call the fetch screen function at the bottom right here. And show now. Oh right, link.url should be get initial link.url.match. There we go. And so now, if I were to copy this URL right here, and we shut off our app, what's going to happen is it's going to actually check if get initial link is not equal to null. So if it's not equal to null, it loads up the app, and then it immediately goes into the actual anime. So basically what we're doing is we create this use effect that's going to run this function called fetch screen. It's in regular circumstances, let's say if we turned off our app and we turned it back on, what's going to happen is it's actually going to run this function, and it's going to stop right here because we actually get initial link is equal to null. So it's not going to go any further. It's not going to make any requests to API or anything. Oops. But if it is equal to, if it's not equal to null, then it's going to go ahead and go through all this process right here. So now we've learned how to actually work with dynamic links and make HTTP requests to be able to render these links and to actually handle these links. Alright, so that concludes the tutorial. I hope that it helps you out. I know that when I was developing this, it was very, very difficult because I had absolutely no idea what to do. Today, we're actually going to be talking about how to make a carousel in React Native. Now, the carousel we're going to be making is going to be made through a library called React Native Snap Carousel. And this is what it's going to look like at the end here. Thankfully, the Jacan Mo API provides some pictures for specific anime. So I can actually scroll through the anime pictures like so. If I find a different anime, like let's say Monster, then I'll see images for Monster as well, right there, just like so. And it'll be pretty simple. And there is a small preface that I do have to say before we do get into the tutorial. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the first preface that I have to make about this library is that if you're using a brand new version of React Native at this date, the version of React Native that's available is 0.7, you're going to experience an issue with something called view type props. And as far as I am understanding, that the only way to really fix this is either to manually install something that will patch it, and then you have to fix your node modules, which is a solution that I'm not really the biggest fan of. Or you can install a previous version of React Native Snap Carousel, this is the one that I was able to find that was working the best, which is 4.0.0-beta 6. And that'll make sure that the issue doesn't come up. So the first thing we need to do is we need to install React Native Snap Carousel. Now, if you want, you can try installing the most latest version for React Native Snap Carousel, which you can just do that by just removing everything after the @ But since in our case, we need to install a specific version. For this to work, we need to install 4.0.0-beta 0.6. Alright, so once you've done that, next we're going to create a hook that we're going to call the pictures part of the API for Jacan Mo API. And we're going to put that inside of our hooks right here. And so let's call that get selected anime pictures.js. And inside here, the first thing we need to do is we need to import use query from @tan stack/-react query. And then we're going to also import Axios. This is going to be very similar to how we do our other API calls. So after this, we're going to do const get selected anime pictures is equal to async. We're going to give it an ID, and inside of here we're just going to do const selected anime URL is equal to, let's just go ahead and copy a URL from, this seems perfect right there, and we're going to replace the recommendations with just pictures like so. So what it's going to do is it's going to receive an ID for that specific anime that was selected, and then it's going to retrieve all the pictures for it. And then we're going to make an Axios call, so we'll do const response is equal to await axios.get selected anime URL, and then just return response.data, like so. Once you've done that, we're going to run this through React use query. So we'll do export const use get selected anime pictures is equal to passing ID, and we're going to do const. So there's two parameters that we need. We need is loading data. Then we're going to use query. Let's give it a name of selected anime pics, and then after that we'll just pass in a function call like so, and then call get selected anime pictures, pass in ID, and we're also going to pass in a parameter just to refetch on reconnect if there's any new pictures that are coming up. So we'll do refetch on reconnect always, and then finally after all this we're going to return data and is loading. So we did a lot. Let me just quickly talk about what's going to happen. So I'm just going to quickly talk about what we did. So we created a function right here that receives an ID, and this ID is coming from whichever anime that we selected. So for example, if we selected Trigun right here, we'll get the anime ID for Trigun, and then we pass it into this URL right here. So this ID right here, we retrieve all the pictures for that ID, give it a Axios get request, return the data, and then after that we are running it through React query to cache all of the results, and then we're returning two parameters, is loading and data, and that's it. Is loading basically checks is the data still loading. If it is, fantastic, and if there is data, to also return data. Perfect. So after this, what we're going to do is we are going to go into the selected anime.js file, and inside of the scroll view we are going to create a new call. So we'll do new component, and we'll call it selected anime pics, and we're going to pass in a parameter of anime ID is equal to selected anime data dot mal underscore ID, like so. We haven't created this yet, so let's go ahead and create that as well. Let's go ahead and run the app as well. So to create this, I'm going to just create a new file, and we'll call it selected anime pics.js. Oh, whoops, create a new folder. Let's go ahead and create a new file called selected anime pics.js, and inside of there just we have some content. Let's just go and copy whatever we have inside of the selected anime.js file, and we'll just paste it inside of here. Let's change this name to be selected anime pics, like so. Let's get rid of all of this content. Let's go to the use effect. We don't need any of this either, and we can leave the styling there. We may or may not use it, and let's get rid of the scroll view, and that's pretty much all we need. Alright, so for this to work, React Native Snap Carousel requires a few mandatory things. So the first thing is we have to first import it from React Native Snap Carousel. The first thing is data. This is going to be equivalent to the data that we just pulled from the API, and after that is render item. This is render item, and this is what each individual carousel item will look like, how it's going to be styled. After that, you do also need two things, so slider width as well as item width, and that's pretty much all you really need. So let's go ahead and actually pull in the data from the API query. So at the top of our function right here, we're just going to do const data and is loading from, we're going to import it from, it's not from, it's equal to use get selected anime pictures, and inside here we need to pass in anime ID, and we'll also pass in the parameter of anime ID right here, like so. And then once you did that, all we're going to do is do data, and let's go ahead and also import it right here, like so. Perfect. It's still not going to work right now because we also have to give it render item and slider width and item width. So let's go ahead and take care of those three things. So firstly, the slider width, what we're going to do is we're just going to give it dimensions dot get screen dot width. So the slider width is going to be equivalent to the entire width of the device's screen. And after that, item width, for this you can really do whatever you want, but for this specific item width, I'm just going to give it 500. And so for render item, we're actually going to is going to be very similar to how you render an item in a flat list that we talked about in previous videos regarding flat list. So we can actually pass it two props. We can give it item and index, and then we can create a return, and inside of here we can just do a simple view, and inside of the view we'll give it a fast image. So this fast image is the way that we're going to be rendering each individual carousel image. So we're going to do source is equal to double braces URI, and URI is going to be item dot, the way that this API set up is it goes item.png or JPEG. We're going to use JPEG, and then dot image underscore URL, and then after that we're going to give it priority, and for priority let's give it fast image dot priority dot high, and let's go ahead and also import fast image. No, it's already imported. Perfect. Let's import view right there. There we go. Oh, whoops, fast image. There we go. And so now the images are going to render, but we're going to add a little bit of styling to it just so the images aren't 0 by 0 width and height. So we'll do style is equal to image, styles dot image styles, and instead of our styles right here, we're just going to do image styles, and we'll give it a height of, let's give it 350, and we'll do width at 100%. Now you could also do dimensions.screen.width, but I just like to do 100%, even though I also did it here. But anyways, and so now what we have to do is we need to check, is the data still loading? Is there data in the first place? If there isn't, then to render a message that says there's no data. If it's still loading, to show text that says still loading. So the way that we're going to make that work is inside of our safe area view, we're going to give it curly braces, and we're going to call is loading. So if it is loading, then we're going to display some text that's going to say loading dot dot dot. Else we're going to check, is there data available, and if there is data, then to render the carousel right here, and outside of the carousel, if the carousel has no data whatsoever, then we're going to do a simple view tag. Inside of there we'll do simple text, and we'll just call no images available. And so now if we test it out, it should all work, hopefully. Oh, whoops, text not defined, so let's go ahead and import it. Text, there we go. So let's go ahead and refresh our app. So we actually had two small typos in the code. In priority, we actually misspelled it. Well, I misspelled it to be priority, so now it's the proper spelling. And image styles does not exist because I called it MIG styles, so image styles like so. And so now if we go into an anime like Witch Hunter Robin, we'll see the anime images associated to that in our carousel like so. And so that was a pretty basic setup on how to work with React Native Snap Carousel. So one final thing that I want to talk about was some cool layout animations that you can do with this library. So you can do something called layout, and inside of here, it actually gives you three different options. You have default, which is how the carousel looks right now. You have stack, which basically stacks each image on top of each other, like so. You can see the little background right there. Or you can do something called Tinder. I am going to be honest with you, I don't know if this is the right animation for what's on Tinder because I've never used it, but you can see that it sort of like fades away the previous image depending on, like if I were to go forward, you see that it's fading out in the bottom right there. So that's a pretty basic setup on how to use React Native Snap Carousel. In the next one, we'll actually go into some more advanced uses of this. So we're going to cover pagination, and we're also going to cover the ref object. So we're going to create two little buttons that's going to allow us to be able to click that when you click it, it'll go left and right on the actual carousel images. Continuation on the last part, where I was going to talk about how to add carousel buttons that will be able to go through the carousel. And this is what it's going to do right here. So I made two buttons right here, a button that goes next to the next image, and a previous one that goes to the previous image, like so. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now, to make these buttons work, it's really, really simple. All we have to do is we need to toggle the ref that's available to us within this Snap Carousel library. So I'm going to do ref, Inside of here, I'm going to give it the parameter of C, and is carousel is equal to C. And we also have to define is carousel. So the way that we're going to define is carousel is going to be let is carousel is equal to use ref, like so, and that's it. So now we can use this ref to be able to run a function that when we click on, whenever we toggle the function, it'll either go to the next image or the previous image. So I'll do const go to next pick, and inside of here we'll do is carousel dot snap to next, and that allows us to go to the next image. And then after that, if we do const go to prev image, go to prev pick, there we go. Then we can do snap is carousel dot snap to prev, like so. And so now we actually have to run these functions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two touchable opacities. So we'll do touchable opacity. Inside of here, I'll give it a simple text, and this will go to the next pick. And after that, we'll do another one. So we'll do touchable opacity, and this will also be a text prev pick. And on press, we're just going to run go to next pick, and down here on press, go to prev pick, like so. And so now it's going to be really simple. So if you were to click this, it'll, well, let me get rid of this layout for Tinder, that's disgusting. So now if we click on, let's say, next pick, it'll go to the next pick. I can click it really, really fast if I wanted. And the same thing with the previous pick. That's pretty much all you need to know about that. We're going to be talking about how to deal with React navigation header styles. So this is what we're going to be building right here. It's a custom made header. We have a green background. We have a specialized logo in the top right corner, well, in the right corner. And we have this button that if we click on it, it exits the app, like so. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So this tutorial is going to be fairly universal. If you're not following along with this course, no worries, you can still find benefit from it. The way that we're going to start this off is go ahead and open up wherever your stack screen is available to you. In our case, it's in the app.js file. And inside of here, we can give it header styles for each individual stack screen. So we have home, and we have selected anime as our two routes, two screens. And so inside of home is where we're going to primarily do our customization. I'm going to give it a prop called options. And inside of here, I'm going to just create a quick function called like so. And here we'll just do a return with curly braces, not the smooth ones, the curly ones. And we can give it some styling if you want. So we have a whole bunch of props available to us. We have animation, content style, header, and all that good jazz. But what we're going to do is we're going to do header style. And inside of here, header style has one styling available to us, which is background color. And for this background color, let's give it red, because I think red looks a lot cooler than green. And after that, let's do something like header title style. So this will actually edit the title styling right here, so the home. And this gives us a lot more options. So we have color, font family, font size. We do have also padding and margin if you want to use that, but we're not going to use that. So let's do something like font family. Let's do something really crazy. Let's do like 50 font of 50. And then we can do font family, and here we can define font family as Montserrat at, let's do light, and then after that we'll do color to be yellow, and let's do, yeah, that should be fine. And so now we see that it changed the color, made the font, oh, I don't know why I said font family twice, font size, there we go. Font size at 50, font family, Montserrat light, and set at yellow. Coolios. Now after that, we can do customizations on either side of the actual header. So we can customize things on the left side and things on the right side. So to edit the right side and left side is pretty goddamn simple. What we're going to do is inside of our return block, which is right here, we are going to add, no, not inside the return block, we're going to do it inside of here. We're going to target something called header left, And inside of here, we can target everything we want inside of the header left. So we can customize it if we wanted. We can add icons, whatever we want. We can do it on the left side right here. So let's say we do something like, let me make these into smooth braces like that. This is something like a touchable opacity. Inside of here, we'll do a text that says exit app. And inside of the touchable opacity, let's do on press. On press, we will run something called back handler dot exit app. Now this is something that React Native actually has itself. This allows you to exit the app. Pretty simple. And so let's set some active opacity so it doesn't dish up here too fast. So active opacity, and we'll set it at 0.8. And so now if we try it out, we see that we have a button that says exit app. We click it and the app is gone. So now if we open it up again, let's go ahead and edit on the right side. It's going to be pretty much the same thing. You probably guessed how to edit that too. All you have to do is header right and header right like so. Smooth braces, not curly. Smooth braces. And inside of here, let's add a small image. So what we'll do is we'll do view. Inside of the view, let's give it some simple styling. So let's do style. I'm a bit too lazy to make a style variable. So what we'll do is height at 50 and width to be 50. And so now I'll make a small image tag and I'll give it the exact same styling. Why the heck not? And we're going to give it a source at URI. Already copied this from Unsplash, and the link to the credit is in the description down below. It's an amazing picture. I really liked it. Reminded me of that Ghibli movie. I can't remember the name of it. Spirited Away, I think. But anyways, so now we have an image on the right side right there. Alright, so that pretty much concludes this tutorial. It was a fairly quick one, but that's pretty much how you cover the basics of customizing the header title, adding things on the left and right side of the actual header. We are going to be talking about how to set up React Native tab view within our React Native project. Now you do not need this exact project setup. You do, however, just need a regular React app setup. That's the only prerequisite that you need. So let me show you guys what we're going to be building. So if I click on Cowboy Bebop and as I click on Monster right here, I'll see the information regarding the anime. So I have a picture of the anime, the description, trailer, a little bit of description, and I've separated into two different columns. So this contains all the info of the anime. If I were to drag it to the right, I'll see all of the recommended anime associated to the selected anime that we clicked on. So for Monster, we have Death Note, Psychopaths, all these really cool anime. So let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so the last time we left off, our app was looking a little something like this. We had a recommended anime, trailer, and just this button right here that would allow us to share the anime. So the first thing that we're going to do to make this work is we need to install two packages. So we're going to do npm i. The first one is going to be react-native-tab-view, and the second one react-native-pager view. And so once we have those installed, next thing we're going to do is we're going to cd into our iOS folder, and inside of here we're just going to do pod install, just so that every single thing is installed and connected properly. So that covers the installation for Android and iOS. Alright, so next what we need to do is we need to add some imports. So we're going to import use window dimensions from React Native, and finally we're going to import tab view from React Native tab view. Alrighty, so the next thing that we want to do is within our selected anime screen right here, we're going to add a new variable and call it layout. Layout is equal to use window dimensions. So then we can just do like dot width when we need to. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add our routes. So we're going to do const routes is equal to use state, and inside of here we're going to give it an array, and the first object will be key, and I'll call it anime info. Then I'll do title, give it anime info like so, and then the second one we'll call it key, call it recommended anime, and we'll give it a title of recommended anime. Perfect. And let's go ahead and save it like so. Whoops, this seems to be a typo. There we go. And next we're going to do another useIf variable. So I'll call it const index and set index is equal to use state, and we'll set it to be 0 initially. So what's going to happen is whenever the tab view is going to be rendered, it's going to be looking at these keys to determine what the title is going to be and what the content is going to be within that tab view. And this index will change depending on whether they're on anime info or if they've scrolled to the right to go and recommend anime. So it'll go 0 or 1, and you can set this to be 0 or 1, whichever you want, and it'll display that initially. Alright, so now I'm going to scroll down into the safe area view, and I'm going to comment out every single thing what's inside of it. And inside of here, I'm going to go and add a tab view tag with a self-closing brace. And inside of here, we're going to give it a couple of props. So the first one we're going to give it is going to be called navigation state. And inside of curly braces like that, we're going to give it index and routes. Finally, after that, we're going to give it another prop called render scene. And don't worry, I'll show you guys exactly what that means soon. And then after that, we're going to do an on index change. So whenever the actual tab view has been swiped left or right, we're going to set index. And then after that, we're going to do initial layout. And this is where the use window dimensions comes in handy. So I'm going to do width. Width. We're going to do layout dot. Oops. We're going to do layout dot width. And I accidentally added smooth braces when we want curly braces, like so. There we go. So the use window dimensions, all it does is it looks at the actual window that the app is currently located in, or where the tab view is currently located in. And if it gets that specific width, then it knows exactly at what point to actually swipe left and right from. So it doesn't, like, if we let's say we have this selected anime only halfway through the screen, then it would just get that little window area right there. So since we have this entire thing selected, now if we swipe left and right, it'll actually look seamless. Alright, so now let's go ahead and create some functions that's going to be responsible for rendering each individual tab view. So first one we're going to do is const anime info is equal to this. And inside of here, we're going to give it a scroll view. And within the scroll view, I'm just going to go ahead and copy our anime trailer screen, like so. And after that, we're going to give it a view. Inside of here, we'll give it a text from React Native. Inside of curly braces, it goes to check if data is equal to undefined. If it's equal to undefined, then just display null. Else, we're going to do data.data.synopsis. This will basically give the specific selected anime's information, like what the actual anime is about. And then I'm going to copy our fallback URL shared anime button right here and just paste it right below there. And after that, I'm going to do const recommended anime. Same thing, curly braces, and inside of here we're going to give another scroll view just in case if there's a lot of information. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and grab selected anime screen, paste it into this bad boy, and I'm going to add the same fallback URL inside of there. Perfect. And so now it's going to say that this should not be empty, so now let's go ahead and fill this. So just really quickly, the documentation for React Native tab view tells you to use a render scene variable, which is a scene map that basically takes in an individual key, which is right here, so first and second, and then it'll display the associated function to that. So it'll display this one for the second route, and it'll display this one for the first route. The problem with this is that if you have an API and you swipe between left and right, it's gonna keep refreshing your API over and over and over again, and that's not a good experience from the API's point of view, because it's going to increase your requests. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a different method that's going to prevent refreshing, so then you can actually save on your API request calls. However, if you don't have an API, just go ahead and use the scene map method. But in our case, what I'm going to do is within our render scene, I'm going to add some curvy braces and then curly braces. Inside of here, I'm going to give it route, and then I'm going to make it a function. And inside of here, I'm going to add a switch case. So I'm going to do switch, and the first key we're going to give it is route.key. And if the value, the case, if it's equal to anime info, so if the key is anime info, then we want to call anime info function. I'm going to get rid of this break right here. And after that, we're going to do another case. Oops, let me just go ahead and add semicolon. So we're going to do another case. If it's equal to recommended anime, I don't want to get a typo, so let's go ahead and copy and paste it like show. Then we're going to do return recommended anime as a function call, and then by default, if there's nothing else, just do return null. There we go. And so now make it prettier. Alright, so now it's setting the animated value, attempting to set value of undefined, and that's because I have a small typo. These curly braces should actually be curvy, like so. And so now, let's say if we go on to monster, we have the info, we have the anime picture, the info for the anime, and then I can drag it left and right, and then I can see all the recommended anime, oh my god, associated to that specific anime. Learning how do we take our beautiful app that's built right here, and we create a bundle release, which we can then use to be able to push it onto the Google Play Store. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so this tutorial is going to be specific for Mac OS, and for Windows, I will attach a link in the description down below that you can follow for Windows tutorial. So the first thing we need to do is we need to open up our terminal. So I'm going to type terminal. Alright, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a file called upload keystore. This upload keystore file is going to be responsible for telling Google that we are who we say we are, we're the creators of the app, and that we can publish the app, and that we can also add updates to it. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to do cd, and we need to go to the home directory. Once we're there, we need to figure out exactly where our JDK path is associated. Some users don't actually have the same JDK path in Mac. So what we're going to do is we're going to type this command in our root. We're going to do /user/libexec/java_home -v 1.8, and then press enter. And then I spit out this little this directory right here. This is where we are going to be going into to be able to upload and create our key store file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do cd and paste that and then go into there. Perfect. So now that we've done that, inside of this directory, we need to copy and paste a certain snippet of code that is going to be responsible for helping us create our key store file. And this is also in the description down below. You can just go ahead and copy it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change the name of my upload key store file to be something different. I'm going to call it my any anime list key.keystore, and then press enter. Alright, so now it's going to ask you to fill in some certain information like password, organization name, and whatnot. Make sure you keep that values memorized and saved somewhere like a notepad or something, and do not let that that key and those answers out anywhere, or else your app is going to be pretty much screwed and it can be exploited. So make sure you have these memorized and written down somewhere. Perfect. So after filling in all the information that was required, I was able to create my key store file right here within that directory I was talking about earlier. Alright, so now what I've done is I've opened up the folder version of where that file is located right here. And I've also opened up our any anime list folder, our project in VS Code. And the next thing that we have to do is we need to go into our Android folder, and we need to go into the Gradle properties. And at the very bottom here, on line 41, we need to copy and paste this snippet of code right here. This snippet of code is going to allow us to be able to place in all of our values for our upload key store, our key alias, our password, and whatnot. So just go ahead and copy it as is, and then what we're going to do is we're going to actually just replace the name here to be my any anime list key store. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my key alias equal just as is right here, since that's how we also created our key alias. and I'm going to enter my store password and upload key password. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my key store file and I'm going to drag it into my Android app folder right here, and then I'm going to add it to my gitignore so it doesn't get pushed into my GitHub. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my build.gradle file in my app folder, and in between my line 228 and 229 I'm going to add this release right here that checks if we have a key store file, and I'm going to change on line 245 our signing config from debug to release, so it's in release mode. And then I'm going to do cd android, and then I'm going to do /gradle w clean, just to make sure that everything is wiped clean, and then we can build our proper build. Alright, so now I'm going to do /gradle w bundle release, and so now it says that our build was successful. And the way that we can find our build is we have to go to our app, then click on build, then we click on outputs. It's going to be bundle, and then here is our bundle release. We can drag this and put it into our Google Play Store, and then it should upload perfectly fine.